So can we start? Are we live?
Goyal ji, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very fine.
Keeping good health. I hope you're taking care of your health.
Yes. So I was waiting to see you. Screen.
Privileged to be part of your program.
Yes, ma'am, we can start. We are live.
Okay. A very good morning to all. I am Shweta Mishra Ghosh, Assistant Secretary General FICCI, and I welcome you all to the global virtual conference that is being jointly organized by FICCI and SRM Institute of Science and Technology on the theme, The Emerging Economic Scenario, Identify and Create Competencies. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome our chief guest, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, the Honorable Union Minister of Commerce and Industry and Minister of Railways. He is joined in this session by Dr. T.R. Parivendar, Chancellor, SRM IST, and Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, President FICCI and Joint Managing Director, Apollo Hospitals, and Mr. Dilip Chenoy, Secretary General FICCI. We also have with us the Vice Chancellor, Professor Sanchetti, advisor to SRM IST, Dr. Raghavan, and other leadership team joining us in this session. Friends, impact of COVID-19 has been devastating world over, destroying the economic and social fabric, disrupting the labor market trends, jobs, and skills requirement. Further, the current crisis is twined with already visible impact of Industry 4.0 related disruptions. Demographics, deglobalization, and environmental impact adds to the complication, leaving all of us in a world full of uncertainties. According to the World Bank June 2020 Global Economic Forecast, the global economy will shrink by 5.2% this year. That would represent the deepest recession since the Second World War, with the largest fraction of economies experiencing declines in per capita output since 1870. In such a scenario, preparing the workforce for the 21st century society will require reimagining the traditional education model and adopt cutting-edge teaching practices to prepare our young to live in a complex, multidimensional, and global society. The future has arrived sooner than anticipated. It is time to push the pause button, introspect, and reinvent the future. The theme of this conference, the emerging economic scenario, identify and create competences, was crafted keeping this paradigm shift in sight. I'm happy to share that conference drew tremendous traction among stakeholders with almost 1,600 registrations that include 300 CXOs and senior leaders, 1,200 academicians, researchers, and policymakers. There are more than 100 academics registered from 41 countries, including USA, UK, Japan, Canada, ASEAN, and Eastern Europe countries. More than 500 plus scholars and students have registered in the YouTube, and this number will keep increasing during the day. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. T.R. Parivendar, Chancellor, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, to deliver his welcome address.
Good morning to everyone who is involved in this conference. I am given the opportunity of welcoming the participants. Let me start with my welcome address. Honorable Minister of Railways and Minister of Commerce and Industry, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Honorable Minister of Human Resources and Development, Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal ji, Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, President, Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries, and Joint Managing Director, Apollo Hospitals, Sri Amit Kair, Secretary, Department of Higher Education, Professor Tan Yen Che, President, National University in Singapore, Mr. Bhavan Das Pai, Chairman, Manipal Global Education, and other members who are going to be in the panel list and deliver lectures. It's a great privilege and honor for me to welcome you all and addressing the conference jointly arranged by Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries and SRM Institute of Science and Technology. Having started on the initiation of Mahatma Gandhiji in the year 1927, the FICCI has given human service to the country with its more than 2 lakh members. Its long standing in the field of commerce and industry proves its success. It also working closely with government policy bodies in an advisory role. SRM Group, in its long existence of 52 years, the field of education provides opportunity to qualify in technology, medical sciences, and humanities. At any point of time, 75,000 to 75,000 students are there in the role, in the group, of which 52,000 students are from our own university. This education group manages one deemed university having half campuses at NCR Delhi, Chennai, and Trichy, apart from managing 3 state universities in Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, and Sikkim. The conference was originally planned earlier in the month of March when there was no trace of COVID-19, inviting thousands of participants physically to discuss and deliberate on the emerging economic scenario, identity, and create competencies. However, we have managed to conduct this conference in the odd period of time by virtual mode. I come to know there are 1,850 plus participants have registered, including countries like US and UK. I'm told like 41 countries have participants are there. It shows the success of this conference. I once again welcome wholeheartedly everyone who are participating in this conference. Friends, India is facing a peculiar situation, experiencing economic slowdown, which is not seen in the past 100 years, as economists say. However, India has managed several like situations the last few decades by our unity, hard work, willpower, confidence, and by our inherited humanitarianism. The areas where we have to give thrust and concentrate are agriculture, industries, and service sector. Food security for the people of India is very, very essential through our own agriculture development. Farmers are the backbone. They never to be allowed to be suffered. They are feeding the country. Apart from this, it also ensures at least 40% employment. So, on any circumstances, there should not be no suicidal cases amongst the farmers. So, the country should assure affordable price for the produce of the farmers. As Gandhi said, India lived in the villages. There should be no power shortage for irrigation, no shortage of manures, pesticides at the cheaper cost in time, and good road connecting the villages, towns for transportation. Use of modern equipments like tractors, balers, blowers, planter, and sprayers, etc. will attract the educated youth to come into agriculture because this will reduce considerably the physical strain. To advance the country, to march forward, large, medium, and small scale industries are indispensable. India is giving attention in establishing big industries for manufacture of steel, cement, motor vehicles, and two-wheelers, etc., which give the strength for the nation and self-reliant. Employment and job creation are mostly met out by the medium and small scale industries. They should be encouraged by providing soft loans, term loans, uninterrupted power supply, and giving concession in GST and other taxes. Importing defense equipments. Importing defense equipments. Importing defense equipments by days should be gradually reduced. Our Honorable Prime Minister, by his frequent addresses, bring people of India more closer to Make in India and Made in India and Digital India. Workers in service sector like hotels, hospitals, construction, and also in unorganized sectors will be given equal weightage to safeguard their day-to-day livelihood. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. As Mandela said, let not born if not educated. It's a version by Plato, Greece philosopher. The above quotes point out the importance of education. Education in different lines like technical, medical, and paramedical plays a very vital role to provide required human resources. At present, there are 945 universities, 40,000 plus colleges are there in our country for higher education. Due thrust should be given to produce highly talented professionals in different fields. Hospitals, nursing homes are to be provided with some special support so that they can import state-of-the-art medical equipment and also to do research. To compete globally, research is the guiding star for which liberal funds should be provided by the government, and certain percentage of profit earned by the industries that should be spared for the institutions for research. Of course, academia and industry are two sides of the same coin. In recent years, we have come to seriously realize the potentials of collaborations and disadvantage of staying apart. It's worth mentioning that more than 8,400 SRM students placed in the campus in the different companies, more particularly software companies, in the last academic year. In recent times, software companies are giving relief for the unemployment problems. They must be supported. The fate of this country is decided by the quality education and research, where India is lagging for want of more funds. The following data will level this point. For example, Norway allots 6.4% of the GDP for higher education, and New Zealand 6.3%, UK 6.2%, America 6.1%, Germany 5.3%, whereas India 4.6%. We have to go a long way. The root cause of the quality education and research will go by the liberal funding as shown above, as informed above. At the juncture, the country cannot ignore the family planning, which is need not to be ignored. It is a need of the hour because more the population, more the consumption, and more productivity should be happen. So it makes time. So nothing wrong to have family planning. So it's really a gracious moment for me to share a few thoughts of mine in this conference as an academician and a parliamentarian. I was trying to point out that the FICCI has a very vital role in enlightening the government to plan budget and allotment of funds in different areas. And I am sure that the FICCI is doing its job very well. I look forward to the tenure of the present president. Many things will happen that will comfort the industry and also solve the unemployment problems. Thank you very much for hearing my speech. I once again welcome you all. I wish the conference all success.
Thank you, Dr. Arivandar, for your welcome address and articulating the close connect between economic development, education, and research. Our sincere gratitude for collaborating with FICCI on this very important subject. May I now request Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, President FICCI and Joint Managing Director, Apollo Hospitals, to deliver her special address. President FICCI, has she dropped out by any chance?
President, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Unmuted.
I am unmuted.
Yes.
Yes. Good morning and namaste. Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal ji, most respected Parivendra ji of SRM University, Dr. Sanshetty, the tremendous number of delegates and participants and the very active chat box I can see from all leading educational institutions across India and many from across the world, including the Philippines, the US, the United Kingdom. A very, very warm welcome and namaste, good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure to be amongst you today to deliver an address on the emerging economic scenario, identify and create competencies. I believe that time is short and all of us are looking forward to the Honorable Minister's address, so I will try to be brief. The team at FICCI, the Secretariat, the Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General Shobha, over the years have done a tremendous job to build up the competency, capability and relationship, as well as the deep insights in the education sector. Now more than ever before is a time for us to review the skill sets we have, understand, evolve, grow, and then make this one of the significant foundations for the transformation which is happening in India as well as across the world. But coming back to the economic scenario, we cannot ignore that the COVID-19 pandemic is a humanitarian crisis that continues to damage lives and livelihoods across the globe. And the economic fallout has been significant. The US GDP fell by more than 5% in the first quarter of 2020, despite the tremendous fiscal inputs which were given. The European governments are attempting a phased reopening, but over 30 million people in Germany, France, UK, Spain have applied for state support for their wages, and their economy has contracted more than 3.8%. It is estimated that for the overall year, EU economic growth could contract by 8.3%, if not further. Uncertainty about the length and the depth of the health-related crisis are fueling economic perceptions of risk, volatility in the financial markets, and definitely impacting corporate decision-making and hence the economy at large. In addition, uncertainties regarding the global pandemic and the effectiveness of public policy intended to contain its spread and prevent the second wave of infections across the globe. The lack of a cure, the fear about the time it will take to find the vaccine. All these are fueling uncertainty across the globe. India's industrial production also plunged by 16.7%. In manufacturing, the Purchase Managers Index, the PMI, a predictor of near economic recovery, contracted by a record amount in April, improved in May, but in July is staying flat. Market capitalization also declined significantly in India from December 2019 to May 2020, partly as a result of the net outflow of approximately $5 billion in foreign investment. The current crisis is twinned by an already visible impact on Industry 4.0, and the workforce of this 21st century will require rethinking the traditional education model, and we must adopt cutting-edge teaching practices to prepare our young to live in this complex, multidimensional, and global society. In this context, the theme of the virtual conference, the emerging economic scenario, identifying and creating competencies, is apt, relevant, and I commend all of you for participating, because education is indeed the foundation for the economy. COVID-19 has fundamentally redefined the new work order, and while people are saying that work from home is also living at work, various innovations from telehealth to robotic process automation, from online classes to virtual internships, technology transition is reshaping the way consumer behavior patterns and business models, and hence the world. At the same time, we are learning new skills, social distancing policies, methodologies to sanitize, fumigate, and stay safe despite the crisis. It's altering the way we work, the way we perform. In manufacturing as well, and social sectors, education and skilling are also hugely impacted. And it's important to note that over 220 million students of universities and other tertiary education institutions in 175 countries have had their studies ended or significantly disrupted. While the global education landscape is undergoing a dramatic transition, and in the presence of so many educationalists and the Honorable Minister, I propose a new thought. If students cannot go back to schools abroad in September, can international global universities reach out to Indian universities and create a new age of partnership? Can we find methodologies for them to spend 6 months to a year in Indian universities studying the international curriculum? While they're admitted into their global universities, they can join them 6 months to 12 months later without disrupting a whole year. I think this is something that we will soon be having a global and national universities meeting to seriously discuss this. And I put this forth to the Honorable Minister to please find the methodologies for us to get permissions, sanctions, and capabilities. So this will create not just a continuity in the lives of the young students, but new business models and new methodologies of partnership will emerge with global universities and Indian universities. Parallelly, there's a tremendous need for us to upskill our existing workers. And more than 53% of firms have started orienting employees on virtual platforms. The tremendous growth, whether it's Microsoft Teams or even though they are security concerns, I believe Zoom has gone up from being used by 10 million office workers a day to more than 200 million people on a day in June. So these kind of significant changes are going to require high-level cognitive and socioeconomic skills, which are characterized by non-standard tasks. Jobs with high routine content will be automated and offshored. This trend is expected to continue and accelerate post-COVID-19. The recent report of FICCI on pre-post-COVID skills and job perspective, 5 key skills required post-COVID for manufacturing sector, including data literacy, digital coding, critical thinking, creativity and innovation, and technology know-how. All these are very, very relevant as we get used to the new normal. Parallelly, we must strengthen our capability and our knowledge and our classes in digital infrastructure, capacity building, effective and collaborative R&D, as is happening right now. If this collaborative R&D could bring down just the innovation cycle and the lifespan for discovery of the vaccine, imagine how transformational this will be. While COVID-19 is being considered a black swan event, we have silently been witnessing the growth of many infectious disease, whether it was H1N1, SARS, MERS. This is also becoming part of the new world order. It is important for us to be prepared for future crises. The learnings that we are undergoing across multidimensional areas will serve us well if we learn those lessons. I'm not going to go into the tremendous scope in the education sector. The market size is significant. The opportunity for global courses and the current surge in online registrations of more than 39%. With 560 million internet users in India, India is the second largest market in the world. Our employability skills and the fact that the demographic dividend of India, if we combine with appropriate educational skills, we can become the service provider for the world. We will enhance and evolve into the pharmacy of the world, potentially with the agrarian changes which are happening in policy heralded by the government, in thought process, and the innate capability of our Indian farmer. We can potentially become the food basket of the world. We can become one of the major healthcare providers of the world with our capability. This scenario continues, juxtapositioned with an Atmanirbhar, self-reliant India, with a growth in our own manufacturing capability and skill sets, with an ability to look at the global marketplace. We foresee, despite the current uncertainty and fears, there is hope, there is potential, there is capability. There is power in the policy of the government. There is power in the capability of industry, of education, and the innate Indian spirit. So whether it's in public-private participations, the industry which is ramped up from ventilators to PPEs, there is a huge underlying movement which is happening of methodology to handle this crisis. So while I spoke about the multiple areas where we are worried, I also want to talk about scenarios like, for example, in education. FICCI has partnered with AICTE for AICTE Atal program to orient faculty and researchers in emerging technologies. This will be transformational in the way we do not just case studies, but teaching and stay current. In a swift shift towards digital teaching learning practices, we are doing FICCI Future X initiatives focused on faculty development and leadership training. This, over the last 3 months, has been one of the most tremendous programs to ensure that our universities, our faculty, and our students are future ready. In conclusion, I want to say that the world will definitely undergo a change. It is difficult to predict what will finally emerge, but for us to be ready for that unforeseen change, let us look at rebounding, reforming, and creating a resilient future citizen. People may look internally and say that when I see the recovery in the economy, then I will believe it's going to happen. I will urge all of you to believe, and then you will see. Let us go forward with hope, with positivity, with resilience, and we will see it happening. All the very best to all of you for a tremendous conference. With my respects to every guru who is sitting in this program, and my regards and good wishes for every student and learner. A grateful thanks to the Honorable Minister, not just today, for his continuous support to FICCI and to the industry at large. Namaste and thank you very much.
Thank you, President, for your insights and excellent articulation of the current scenario and forward. With due permission of the Honorable Minister, we will now release a FICCI paper on online education opportunities and challenges. This report analyzes the current pandemic crisis and the readiness towards swift adoption of online education under the following 6 heads: technological readiness, faculty readiness, content readiness, infrastructural readiness, security readiness, and assessment, accreditation, and monitoring and evaluation readiness. This report also has a comprehensive recommendation section highlighting the specific roles that the government, educational institutions, and the edtech companies need to play to ensure creating a robust online education system in the country. Thank you all for releasing the paper. I would now request the Honorable Union Minister of Commerce and Industry and Minister of Railways, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, to deliver his keynote address.
Dr. T.R. Parivendan, Chancellor of SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, the President of FICCI, Shri Sandeep Sancheti, all other distinguished participants from across the globe who have joined this virtual conference on the emerging economic scenario to identify and create competencies that India has or can develop. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I must compliment FICCI for releasing this paper on online education in India, the opportunities and challenges ahead. It'll be a good starting point both for policymakers and for educationists and industry across the country to reassess their competencies, their way of working, and engage with the best that is available across the globe. Clearly, technology is going to decide the economic destiny of India going forward. And so it has been ever since the Industrial Revolution 1. It has transformed nations, it has transformed economies, it has transformed the way you and I live. And it happens very rapidly. Doesn't give you much time or scope or chance to be lazy, to go slowly down this path. Sometimes it's not noticeable on a day-to-day life, but its impact is deep. Its impact affects all of us. And I'm glad that FICCI has partnered with SRM IST to deliberate on this very important subject, take it to the academic leaders and policymakers, not only in India, but across the world. Initiate a dialogue around this very important subject and hopefully come up with outcomes that will help us in the post-COVID world, significantly changing the way we live, study, work, and the way the nation progresses. In fact, the only way to remain competitive in this very, very highly globalized world is to harness new and emerging technologies, reach higher levels of production, productivity, expand to become more competitive. And the new technologies that we are talking of today are happening right here and now. They are not going to happen in the future. Every single day lost is a day gone. Every single moment seized is an opportunity in your hand. Today, when we talk of big data, that big data is available, but it's only as good as you analyze that data. Unless you use these tools of artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain, Internet of Things, engage in data analytics in a big way, what good is big data? And to my mind, this rise of technology is not a bad thing. It's not something that we should shy away from. It's something we should engage, something we should adopt, something which should be a part of our day-to-day work and effort. Frankly, it should be a passion of each one of us to engage with technology, to learn from technology, to innovate, to bring newer and newer ways of living and working and studying. Technology should drive our thoughts in this globalized atmosphere, because rapid technological innovation and adoption will not lead to job losses in the aggregate. There may be a reskilling required, a retooling required. Jobs of a certain sector may need to be reoriented to jobs which are future ready. But on the aggregate, my belief is that we will add to jobs, we will add to work opportunities, and technology is truly a powerful tool to help democratize development, progress, and prosperity, because it will lead to social and economic equality. With the kind of spread of communication tools and the very fact that all governments, many businesses, many academic institutions have continued to function, if I may venture to suggest, more efficiently than ever before in certain areas, it's because of engaging with technology in a big way. And therefore, I have kept my talk centered around technology, because I believe with the kind of, I saw the chat box also, and I realized that we have some very, very eminent academicians on the call. We have some very passionate believers in the future on this conference. And I believe that the future is going to be defined by all of you participants who are really the flag bearers of the emerging India of a future which is working towards the prosperity of 1.3 billion Indians. In fact, if we look at historical examples, look at Germany, look at Singapore, many other nations, the US today is growing, is prospering on the strength of research, development, and innovation. In fact, it is the lack of effective technological interventions that has probably triggered inequality in certain parts of the world. But we should be willing to learn from the example of others. Technology adoption can be phase-wise. We need not have an overload overnight. We need to prepare the nation. We need to skill our people to absorb technology. And with this rapid skilling program, we can bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots, between the technologically savvy and those who have remained deprived of modern technology for years and years in the past. New economic activities, new opportunities will be created by the advent of technology, and production centers also may shift in the years ahead of us. The Institute and FICCI sent me some information, some of which was very, very interesting and an eye-opener, which I would like to share with you. And I was told 1 out of 4 graduate who comes out of higher education by 2030 is going to come out of the Indian higher education system. It came as quite a surprise to me. And therefore, I hope each one of you realizes the important role you are playing, not only to shape India's destiny and future, but to shape the destiny of the world. the future of mankind is going to look up to your work to prepare good Indian citizens with quality education, with education encompassing a very wide canvas, not necessarily just the traditional BA and BCom and BEd and BSc. The world is evolving into the world of liberal arts, the world of technology, the world of newer ways of doing things. You have a Mr. Anand Mahindra who goes to Harvard, graduates from Harvard, but what is his major? What was his passion? Photography. And he goes on to lead one of the most successful conglomerates that India has seen. With his passion being harnessed initially in photography, but honing his skills to harness that same passion, to engage with technology, to engage with modern way of working, to engage with management principles, and become a top business leader of the country. In fact, I'm sure all the educationists on this call will also be looking at unique and newer elective programs. I mean, the opportunities are out there for us to grab. The Honorable Prime Minister, with his vision and foresight, took yoga to the whole world. We now have an International Day of Yoga, which we celebrated last month. The world is excited about the potential of yoga. The pranayams, the various forms of yoga are a very holistic and complete exercise of the body, mind, and soul. But did India really grab the opportunity that the Honorable Prime Minister opened up for India? Did we set up 100,000 yoga centers all over the world? Did any entrepreneur amongst you or a startup think in terms of the possibilities that yoga offers by planning to train maybe 100,000 or 500,000 yoga teachers who would find an opportunity across the globe in maybe 200 countries or 195, 97 countries, where people, and believe me, you just need to get somebody to the yoga room for 4 sessions. The 5th session, he will come running. And then for the rest of his life, he will want to be a yoga participant. That is the power of yoga. I don't know whether all of us have failed the nation and the people of India, where despite the Honorable Prime Minister with his vision being opening up doors, opening up opportunities for all of us, have not seized the moment. I mean, Sangeeta ji, as a renowned doctor and running one of the finest medical institutions in the country, will appreciate that cure is not only about medicine, it's not only about hospital treatment, it's not only about visiting the doctor. The huge possibilities of yoga as a preventive form of medication is known to many of us, but has not been captured as an opportunity, has not helped us serve the people of India to the extent that I'm sure Mr. Modi had in his mind when he first visualized taking yoga to the rest of the world. On a personal note, I can share with you the excitement that has been created around yoga, thanks to Honorable Prime Minister's efforts, was evident to me when I was the minister in waiting for the Prime Minister of Australia many years ago. And you won't believe it. He landed, came out of his plane. I had barely introduced myself to him. And his first question was, and I tell you, it came as a shock to me. His first question was, can you help me do a yoga session with Prime Minister Modi? I was taken aback. I said, but why? He said, he's so fresh. He's working 18, 20 hours a day. But even a meeting at the fag end of the day in one of our G20 or any of our international engagements, his face is bright. His eyes have a gleam. And he's engaging with the same concentration as one would expect in the first meeting of the day. There certainly is a power in yoga. I want to do yoga. I'm just sharing this with you to tell you that the ways of the world are going to change in the future. Post-COVID, you never know. People may be afraid of physical contact, considering social distancing, 2 gaj ki zuri, a 2-yard distance, mask. All of these are becoming a way of life. When you're not going to be willing to look at social contact or touching, now with the world also accepting namaste as the form of greeting, do you realize that you're not going to be very comfortable going to medical practitioners for your common cold and common illnesses? So why not you look at preventive methods? A good pranayam session in the morning can actually ensure you don't get the common diseases that one hears of, cold, flu. It just cleans up your whole system. It helps you prepare your body and your mind for a much more active day ahead of you. But we lost. But I don't think all is lost. I still think if some innovative youngsters were to plan to take this to the rest of the world, India can become a powerhouse providing this technology. And it's a scientific technology. Every aspect of yoga, every asana teaches you something new, teaches you how it impacts your body and your mind and your soul. And why I've taken this example only to share with you that disruption need not always be technological. Disruption is not only coming out of our computer screens. Disruption will come out of a variety of ways. It's for us to see whether we are willing to engage, whether we are willing to offer to the rest of the world India's traditional strengths, while at the same time acknowledging and accepting good things that we can learn from the rest of the world. In fact, Atmanirbhar Bharat is going to be a defining moment for India's economic future and prosperity for our teeming millions. While our education is vital to make our citizens ready to face an uncertain future, we also need to grow and nurture leaders who will shape our destiny. We also need to focus on these young students and prepare them to be the leaders of tomorrow with skills such as creativity, innovation, complex problem solving, cognitive abilities, and social skills. The best work is work done with passion and compassion. And that's what our young leaders of tomorrow have to be prepared for. We have to build on India's existing strengths, but also increase our global engagement. Atmanirbhar Bharat does not close India's doors to global engagement. In fact, it opens them wider. India has to become a nation which deals with the rest of the world from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness. We have to engage with the rest of the world in areas where we have the competitive edge, where we can be competitive in comparison to the rest of the world. We have to develop skills in India which come naturally to Indians. The Honorable Prime Minister the other day spoke about furniture manufacturing in India. Now that's a skill that we have millions of Indians, good carpenters, very good artisans. Yet India continues to import furniture. Can we not prepare India to become the factory of the world for furniture? Can we not build to scale at competitive prices so that the world looks to India to source from India furniture which is required in large scale, let's say modular furniture? Yet our good carpenters and artisans can create pieces of art which will sell across the world far better at more competitive prices than any other nation can offer. In fact, we have identified first 12 sectors and now 8 more, so we have 20 sectors in which FICCI and other associations are very much a part of our engagement, where we have identified sectors where India can not only meet our own domestic needs, but also become globally competitive and become global leaders supplying to the world. That is identifying competitiveness and then working together with government, universities, industry, creating global competitiveness also. And this is an effort which will be incomplete, but for the joint effort of all stakeholders. Our institutes of higher education and learning will prepare our citizens and our young boys and girls to engage with the rest of the world, to engage with new technologies, to take India's strengths to the rest of the world. Our industry, our entrepreneurs will invest and become global powerhouses. Our government initiatives will be focused towards supporting an enabling environment for ease of doing business through single window clearances, through plug and play infrastructure, port-led economic activity, dominance in certain sectors where India has the competitive edge, textiles, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, education. Today you have one startup who's a $10 billion virtual educator. Can you imagine what the global perspective and potential is for virtual learning? And couple that virtual learning with classrooms which will have to maintain social distancing and all the precautions. But if you do a hybrid of virtual education and classroom learning coupled with industrial training, on-the-job training, can you imagine what a powerhouse of skill we will develop in this country? In the railways, for example, we have over 300 training institutes, but we are now setting up a university, the National Rail Transportation University. What we are planning now is largely our training programs, both for reskilling and upskilling our railwaymen and women. Large part of the program will be virtual. Some part of the program will be in the classroom, maintaining social distances and all other precautions. And then a large part will also be through on-the-job training. Now, can you imagine the person who comes out of this combination of all three, how well skilled and how well developed he will be for the development of a modern railway system in India to meet the needs of the passengers and for movement of goods for industrial and economic development. As Michael Porter had said, national prosperity is created, not inherited. And ladies and gentlemen, you and I are the creators of our future, of our destiny, of our prosperity. You and I will have to work together to make India that powerhouse of technology at competitive prices of world-class quality. You and I will have to develop the capacity of industry to innovate, upgrade, You and I will have to work together to prepare our citizens for a brighter and better tomorrow. Every teacher on this call, every university should take it upon himself as his bounden duty, his responsibility, his commitment, his or her commitment to make sure that every citizen in this country contributes to the well-being and a better future for our brothers and sisters, particularly the less privileged sections of society, the marginalized sections. To my mind, we are providing corporate leaders to Fortune 500 companies. The world's top companies today have an Indian at the helm of affairs. I think we will, going forward, provide talent and provide skills, not only for India, but for the entire world. We want a competition in the whole world, vying for Indian talent, desperate for our Indian boys and girls. That should be the situation that you and I will work for. We have huge potential. We have to harness that potential. We have huge skills. We have to channelize that skill. We have huge passion in our young boys and girls. We have to give that passion an opportunity. We have well-meaning individuals with great compassion for our brothers and sisters. We have to encourage that compassion. And I have no doubt in my mind that with this collective effort of the academia, government, associations and organizations, institutions, and the people at large, we have a very, very bright future for India waiting in the wings for us to fly. My best wishes to each and every participant on this very important conference. My best wishes to FICCI. My best wishes to SRM IST, to Dr. Parivender, the Honorable Chancellor of SRM IST, to Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, President FICCI, to all the other participants. This must be one of those rare occasions where, as the conference progressed and as I was speaking, the number of participants have kept going on, as I am seeing on the screen. But I do hope each one of you will go away from this conference at the end of the conference, after all the deliberations, re-energized to reinvent your future, the country's future. My best wishes to each one of you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your very passionate and insightful remarks. And as you have suggested, the following two sessions are actually going to be deliberating on the new world of work, as well as the new age industry academia engagement that will be required to fulfill the vision that Honorable Prime Minister and your good self has. And I'm sure each one of us here is extremely enthused to join that journey of fulfilling the Atmanirbhar Bharat's vision. Sir, I also want to take this opportunity to thank Ministry of Commerce, which has been supporting the FICCI Higher Education Summit now over 4 years to promote Indian education globally. This we do every year in the month of November. And it's a great opportunity, sir. Thank you so much for the support. On behalf of FICCI, I would also take this opportunity once again to thank SRM Institute of Science and Technology for engaging with us and supporting us in organizing this conference. I would also like to thank all the participants who have joined and who are going on joining, from both India and abroad. Thank you so much, sir. With this, we come to an end to this inaugural session. However, we will immediately move into the next session, that is the new world of work session. And may I now invite Mr. Pranjal Sharma, economist, analyst, and author, India Automated, who is going to be moderating this session. And the session panelists with us are Mr. Vijay Sahu, President HR Reliance Industry Limited, Mr. Arjun Jain, CMD Intellect Design, Mr. Anurag Malik, Partner in India Leader, Workforce Advisory, Ernst & Young, Mr. Hemal Shah, Senior Vice President and CIO, Dell, and last but not the least, Mr. Lokesh Mehra, Head AWS Academy, South Asia, Amazon. Over to you, Pranjal.
Shobha, 1 minute. I just want to thank the Honorable Chancellor, Dr. T.R. Parivender. Namaskaram. All the very best and happy for this participation. And welcome all new panelists. Have a wonderful conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, President, for your support.
Thank you, Shobha, and thank you, Ms. Reddy, for this session. It was, I think, very exciting to hear the minister being so optimistic and enthusiastic. It was always felt even before COVID, but I think the situation today with COVID has accelerated the change to a level that we really have to make an effort to prepare. In this session now, what we're going to be doing is we'll have industry leaders share their thoughts and experiences of what has happened, what is happening in their respective companies and the industries and sectors, and also give some suggestions and advice on what can be the future, what are the takeaways for young professionals as well as for potential those who are studying right now and they're looking to join the corporate world. So I would now request that we start this, and if we can ensure in interest of continuity that while we are going to be all the speakers will come one by one. If there is a disconnect, I will request the next speaker to start continue on that. But let me begin by inviting Vijay for his
Good morning, Bijay sir here. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Thank you, FICCI and other panel members and the audience and the SRM Institute. Actually, more than manufacturing, I deal more with the technologies and consumer businesses. I'll broadly touch a few points. So what actually I have been observing that certain things have become new normal. As we are talking, we are operating from home. Offices are closed. Factories are operating. But the business is going on. The business is going on. Sometimes it is actually better than before because of the digital and essential services like consumer businesses, retail, etc. It looks like it's a new opportunity for new industries. So that is actually from the perspective of our company in regard to taking care of colleagues and all the kind of ecosystem we have, led by our chairman. We have taken very special care in terms of prevention of the disease and in terms of if there is somebody affected in our ecosystem, whether employee, vendor, partner, we are supporting them in terms of healthcare, cure, and coming back to work. So that's actually about the company. Larger issue, I thought, like, since it's an opportunity to share my own personal thoughts, I thought I'll take this chance. I was listening today, the speakers, earlier speakers. It actually personally bothers me when I was, when I keep thinking in 1980, our GDP and China's GDP were almost same. And 2020, there are 5 times of us. What made that difference? Most of the things are actually in the space of technologies. And I'm seeing at a micro level in our company, whenever we have new technologies businesses, they're creating actually disproportionate value as against the traditional legacy businesses. That probably applies well for any company, any industry, and any nation, that by focusing on emerging kind of latest disruptive technologies, you create disproportionate value. but at the same time, it is creating a large digital divide. If you look at the rural area and if you look at the urban area, so in urban areas, like offices are closed, but still, people are affected. But if you look at the what happened to the workers, migrant workers, you would have seen all the stories last over 3 to 4 months, like how they went back home. So I have some rural roots. So I come from a village. So when I talk to my villagers, I found like when all sectors, like our factories are closed, our construction factories are closed. Those are not automated, not Reliance, but other industries, other companies I'm watching. And the construction sites are affected for not having workers. But at the same time, if you look at the rural areas, 40 million people have gone back to villages. They have no work. Now 800,000 people from Kuwait, they have to come back because of the policy change. Kuwait was the fourth largest kind of money provider, remittance provider to the country. We get in India almost like $80 billion remittance money that is mostly drying up because of immigrants getting affected. The migrants back in the village, they are getting affected. So every sector is challenged. Two sectors are doing well. One is actually technology, telecom, media consumption, etc. on one side, and another is agriculture. So these two are doing well. So I was looking at the agriculture and the rural side. I found the farmer. The farmer continues to work hard. His child continues to fight in the border as a soldier. His other continues to work as a migrant worker who is actually back at home and a support to him. Now, actually, it is the time at the national level, FICCI level, industry level, we should do complete thinking, like what new skills are required at the highest level when our engineers are coming out from institutes like SRM, and what skills are required at those migrant workers level, those 40 million people. We have 160 million migrant workers, and 40 million of them have gone back home. And we have 17 million migrant immigrants workers outside India. Almost one third to one fourth of them, half of them have come back home. So what skills they need, what disruption these technologies is bringing. As the COVID kind of situation is happening, more automation also throws away people from the job. So what new skills are required? So one kind of skills engineers will need, another kind of skills workers will need. So those are the things of debate today. Since only 5-6 minutes are allotted, I have taken 5 minutes of my time. But the last, I must tell you what we started when I saw all these migrants going back home. I requested some of the professors of IIT Bombay and Bhubaneswar. We started a platform called Mo Sahai. So we have by now kind of enrolled over nearly 2 million migrants. So those migrants, we are trying to actually do the skills mapping and which all industries they can go back and work, whether construction sector, manufacturing, all those sectors which are emerging as jobs, new jobs. And there we are finding the skills gap and what are the reskilling required in view of the new situations. So the skills, like Honorable Minister said, it's just not the physical, infrastructural or technology skills, but also the skills in terms of how to take care of health, how to work in kind of COVID situation. So those are the things when we are talking to migrants every day, we meet and talk to some of them. We have got the demand of 150, 160,000 people in the demand side. Supply is 2 million already we have identified. And there are like 100 volunteers are working, IIT Bhubaneswar, IIT Bombay professors, professionals, students. So those of you need people at different levels, but more so from the rural area, you are welcome to visit Mosaha site. That is my personal kind of passion. Thank you so much. I don't want to take more than 6 minutes.
Thank you, Vijay. I think that was very efficient, and also the focus on migrants is so critical. It's important that large companies like yours are equally sensitive to the needs of the informal sector, the blue collar, as well as, of course, the white collar professionals. I'd now like to invite Mr. Arun Jain to share his thoughts.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning as of now. And I was listening to the conversation made by President of FICCI, then Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal, and Bijoy, his comment on migrant worker. I think this is any big change brings a new set of crises, a new set of opportunities. And after the World War II, the Russia, where 20 million people got killed in World War II, sent man on the moon in next 14 years by 1959 from 1945. So it's a great opportunity for us to reflect back what competency we require for the new world. One of the competency which I proponent is design thinking. What is design thinking? I think competency is to identify the sharp opportunities in the marketplace, and that marketplace is not India. This marketplace is a global world. It has a 7 billion population for which we need to identify a sharp opportunity, because sharpness of the opportunity will be there, and then build up a systems to scale it up 100 times, 1,000 times, 100,000 times. So these are two basic requirements are there. So in design thinking, what we are looking, Silicon Valley, which has taken advantage over the Boston economies earlier, is because of design thinking they introduced sometime in 1992 over the MBA. So in education system, there is a significant change of bringing design thinking as a part of the whole curriculum. And that design thinking, when we applied in Intellect internally, we found our products are number one in retail banking, number one in wholesale banking in the world. Not in India, but in the world, our products are number one in this year. In just 7 years, we are able to bring our product to number one status in a competitive global economies. And what is the laws of design thinking? It's the last 2% is equal to 200% value. We do 98% products are similar in the world, whether Chinese product or global product, Korean products. Last 2% makes a huge difference to the scalability. Apple phone, we pay 3 times the pricing. Second law of design thinking is less is more. Less number of product, but 7 billion people. Market, 7 billion people. Education is a global education. Go to everybody in the world and do the education. So don't look at with the digital channel available, there's no difference for me sitting in Chennai, sitting in Bombay. There's no difference anybody or somebody sitting in China or somebody sitting in Kenya. That's a big opportunity which is available to us, which is less is more. The third thing is we need to pick up our battles right. 10 gram, 100 gram, 1,000 grams. What battles we need to pick up in competency, which is 1,000 gram items. Otherwise, we solve 20 problems, but every problem is 20 gram problem, not 1,000 gram problem. If you solve 2 problems of 1,000 gram, it can make a difference. So these 3 design thinking laws to drive the desirability of the human, to move to the technology as a feasibility, as Minister says that we have a technical people who can make it feasible. We need a business acumen to make it viable, which is already available with us. A lot of people in Marwari, Gujarat, North India, a lot of $10 billion companies are coming. That is the viability. We need to convert mystery of this 900 million people farmer, which is available, what Vijay is touching upon. This 900 million people by putting precision farming, the technologies, to look at how do we look at it, that mystery of that power of the people to the algorithm of problem solving. And for doing that, we need to apply design thinking principle of getting to the customer's shoes, understanding the customer at length, and listen to what he has not said. Not listen to what he said, but listen to what he has not said. Then observing the patterns in the market, the trends in the market, global patterns in the market, the way China, you have mentioned, it has grown 5 times. They observe the pattern. They observe the anti-pattern, what is not working in the world. And then document in a whiteboard in a structured manner. And then you connect the dots and unearthing the blind spots. So there are 3 ways of looking at design thinking as a process, which need to be part of our curriculums for the students as well as everyone. I would say that 3 design systems in a short, because 6-minute time, I take a workshop. I have which is the art and science of design thinking, but the 3 systems are most critical, which we got a benefit in intellect design. First system is system of knowledge cataloging. How you knowledge catalog, the way you catalog the library in your human mind, how the knowledge is cataloged. There's a macro level knowledge. So if there are 200 items to for a particular system, instead of putting 200 items on a listed manner, you put a level 0 items, 6 blocks. Each block will have a sub element, which is a L1 knowledge, and which is a 6 block, and each L1 element has a 6 blocks further. So it's become 6 by 6 by 6, become 216 element can be organized and give them a number called A1, B1, C1, D1. even. So some numbering is required so that your mind can capture back the knowledge better. Second is a system of dialoguing. Normally, we believe hierarchically in the companies. We do the reviews, we do the discussions. We don't have a system of dialoguing in the organization. I call circle time is a system of dialoguing where we sit down in circle time and every member of the team brings a new perspective to the problem, which makes the problem more comprehensive solution. So last 2% comes with a system of dialoguing. And third question is system of asking questions. Design system for asking questions. We have very hierarchical oriented parent-child relationship in Indian heritage system. We always look at it that we should not ask questions. We need to encourage people to ask question boldly, assertively. And then this question should be effective question to be asked. Sometimes we need to just make it not effective. You ask any question initially, and that is the kind of education system has to be brought in, where we need to train our students to ask questions. And even when the company first year student comes into the company, fresher comes to the company, can he ask a question for clarification? So there are three systems I'm saying: system of dialoguing, and system of asking questions. If these three elements are there, it drives the human thinking much sharper. It drives the thinking of spotting the opportunities better. And once those opportunities are spotted, the right opportunities, whether it's a furniture opportunity or whether Bijoy is looking some other opportunities are there, that will come. And then you have to scale it up by last 2% to 100%. Moving from 98% to 99%, 1% movement takes 2 years of design thinking in a row. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in such a important forum of FICCI. Thanks a lot, President.
Thank you, Arun. I think from a serial entrepreneur like you, these are very important thoughts, especially for the faculty and students. I think the key takeaway, of course, is the part about design thinking. But what really also struck me very clearly is this concept of cataloging knowledge, because sometimes we don't put enough effort into institutional history. And I think that's absolutely critical for us to look at. And I think it speaks also to what the minister said about changing the way that we educate and changing the way that we create experiential learning for everybody. I'll now invite Anurag Malik to come in and share his thoughts, especially cross-industry perspective in a time where automation is now making a very big impact in almost every sector. Over to you, Anurag.
Mute kar do.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Available on Google or not? Amazon, I think.
Pranjal, I think he's dropped out. Maybe you can go to the next speaker.
Yes, so, may I request, in case, Anurag, are you there? Can you hear us?
Hi, Pranjal. Anurag just dropped out. Perhaps some electricity. He'll be back in 1 minute. So next speaker can please go ahead.
Okay, so may I request Himal to continue, please?
Yeah, sure. Hey, so look, good morning, afternoon. These are very interesting times, right? I would just want to characterize my view into two parts, right? One is, what are we seeing from a landscape perspective, and then what does that mean to us? From a landscape side, to come in, and then I'm just taking a few years back, right? I mean, we have been on a sea of a generation change. Like we used to talk about the baby boomers, the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. We are already talking about the Gen Alpha now, right? So these are the people in the few years who actually will start in the workforce, and the demands and the needs and the characteristics that come from each of the generation is very different, and it's much better than any of the previous generation, right? So one thing is, you just see a natural trend that there is a shift in the way that we work, just purely from a generation's perspective, and it's going faster and faster and faster. The other shift that we have all seen in the last many years is the whole business change with the technology, right? I mean, we have seen that, in the last many years, technology is pervasive. Every successful business, majority of them are technology businesses, right? If you see the many of the examples that Vijay also said, the impact of technology that has gotten into literally every single business, no matter what, is just absolutely huge. Um, if you think about these two perspectives in mind, the last 6 months have been a horribly interesting to add to that already changing landscape, right? We have seen a complete change in the way we work. That is a total dramatic change. At Dell, I was actually talking to the interns yesterday. uh, they don't have the flexibility to come into the offices. They may not see their managers in person. It's a big change on the way that we work across many of the industries, right? So huge change on the generation side that has been going on, a fairly big change on the business transformation side that we have seen in the last few years. The last 6 months is that, when you add up these two, and to add up, what has changed, the way that we work has totally changed. To keep it simple, what does that mean to us, right? I think the advice that I would give, and the way that we have been looking at things, is two very simple things. The first one, highly resonated with what uh, Mr. Goyal said, and Harun also said, right? Don't just embrace change. Change is, it's not an optional thing. You have to embrace it, but don't just embrace it. Like, lead it, and lead it with a passion. To extend that, I think that whole concept of a hierarchy, this whole junior senior thing, as people enter the workforce, should completely go away. One of the things that we have been doing at Dell is actually taking a lot of onus on the reverse mentoring. So I have a mentor who's also my pair programmer, who's actually teaching me a lot of the Kubernetes stuff. His uh, name is Rohit Das. He came from the university to us last year, and honestly, spending all that time with him, I actually think I've learned so much. And where I genuinely see is that I think the opportunity is in the workforce. You literally have to come into the workforce blurring all the lines as far as any of the hierarchy goes. So don't use the word junior or senior. Most of the highest creative thoughts that we are seeing are actually coming from the people who are just entering the company and who are just entering the workforce. So don't have this fictitious notion about the hierarchy. So that's one. The second thing is what how to think as far as all of the skills goes, and you've seen a lot of the references in today's discussion. I do think things like the IoTs of the world, the AIs of the world, look, I mean, they are the usual suspects. I mean, there is no doubt that, all that stuff will help. But I think, to me, one of the things which is an unusual suspect, and probably the one that I think in the most recent world, especially with the changes in the way we work, is curiosity. The more curious people are, the more they know how to do stuff. Because look, now you're not in, you are in a different environment. Work may not come running to you. You need to see what's happening. You actually, to a certain extent, will control a part of your own destiny. That will help significantly higher if you just hone in along with all the other skills, one especially high skill, which is be curious. That's it. Back to you, Pranjal.
Well, I think the key point I like is about skills and the flat hierarchy. In my view, what's going to happen is that skills will be more important than experience, and simply because people who have experience are not really, we don't have that kind of experience simply because those issues have not, the technologies are pretty young themselves. But the technologies are young, you can't expect people with 15 years experience to be available all the time. So hierarchies will obviously be restructured, and I think this is a important imperative for organizational leaders to also look at, simply because the whole process from hiring to retirement will also undergo a huge change, and I think the mindset of organizations has to change as well. And it's not just about the government and skilling, but organizational structures will have to be revamped as well. Now I'll get Lokesh to come into the picture. And Lokesh, you represent a new age industry, so perhaps your thoughts on what is the new world of work.
Thanks, Pranjal. I'd like to begin by, sharing a couple of data points. First of all, I think everybody knows that the world population is about 7.6 billion. But an interesting fact in that is about 3.7 billion are connected to the internet. From that 3.7 billion, about 50% reside in Asia itself. And from that 50%, 24% belong to India. Now, some points that I want to put forth is number one, if you see in the industry, the Fortune 500 companies, the shelf life has gone down from 60 years now to 12 years. It implies that if a company like GE or somebody was there constantly for a very long period of time, now that thing is changing very fast. Number two is that the value of a skill has gone down to a max threshold of 5 years. That's the maximum what a student can expect. The point is, like talked about, the millennial generation, the attention span is typically 8 seconds. So if you're going to talk to them, if you're going to coach them, teach them, their attention span is very, very limited. So they're bombarded by social media, and you need to keep them engaged through quizzes, through anything of that sort. Number four is that today, in a career span of say about 40 years, assuming that the person joins at 22 and retires at say 60, he will change his job approximately 12 times, which indicates that the job span is barely about 3.5 years. And not changing a job like going from one company to another in the same vertical, but the whole career may change. I may go from hospitality to say, plumbing to photography to anything else. So there's going to be a big change in that. So what is the outcome or reflection from all of this? First of all, there is exponential disruption which is happening. Number two, change is double. And this is all happening because of science, technology, and COVID has done nothing but accelerate the whole process. Jobs, as the minister said, are disappearing. But then you need to, this is an opportunity within that crisis to go and reset yourself and get that opportunity. I'll take a simple example out here. If you look at a mother wears various hats. She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a parent, she's also a professional. So she keeps changing her hats depending on the situation. Same way, the institutes today will have to keep changing their hats based on the requirement what is there from the industry. So you need to be ready to reset yourself very, very fast. Let's talk about the emerging tech. From an emerging tech, if you look at all the 9 or 10 emerging tech, which include right from AI, cloud to 3D printing and everything, they're currently, as per the NASSCOM FICCI talent base, there are about 600 odd digitally skilled professionals right now. If I just take cloud as an example, there are about 250K professionals, but it is envisaged to reach about 1 million in the next 2 years. And there are not enough people who are going in for those kind of jobs. They don't have an exposure to do that. So AI and machine learning can help, people and machines learn on their own. However, like when we do a Google, we ask a question, there is AI going at the back. But you need to understand that as humans, we need to ask better questions. You need to bring it with empathy. I'll take a very small example to talk about this. Today, if I apply for a loan to a bank, a bank chatbot will kind of interact with me, where they will typically say that, say, based on my past antecedents, the loan may get rejected. But why is it got rejected? That's where the human interface needs to come in. So the machine and the human need to work together, because the human will bring in the empathy, the creativeness, the judgment part, which is there. So overall, what I would like to indicate is that lower the cognitive tasks, those jobs are going to disappear. But wherever there is an element, like Arun talked about design thinking, or Hemal talked about, the curiosity, these are places which would require the human element. In our traditional scenario, we have a very simple logic. During our times, it was you go to school, you go to college, and then you go to work. The linear kind of approach, which is you learn to work. Repeat, learn to work. In the current generation, you would need to discover, you would need to experiment, you would need to assess, and you would need an entire mindset where the learnability quotient is going to change. And here you work to learn. So learn to work changes from work to learn. So from a linear approach, now you have an algorithmic diffusion which is going to happen. So that's the entire difference which is there right now. I'd like to talk about two things currently. From a manufacturing perspective, I think there's been a lot of supply chain disruption. Three elements that you need to take into cognizance. First of all, raw material there has been a huge shortage. Number two, factories have been shut down. Number three, transport, logistics, flights and ports have been shut down. So what do you do to overcome all of these? First of all, diversify. You need to look beyond China options. Number two, you need to look at online marketplaces. Number three, you need to have processes where you can keep on updating in terms of how the social distancing, etc., needs to be. Uh, just to share, from Amazon perspective, there are 14 leadership principles that every Amazon person has to comply to. But traditionally, what we call as a job is called a role out there. Number two, it is not a function in which you report. So, for example, by function, I imply an HR or an IT function, but here it is competency based. For example, writing is a competency that I may have. Number three, we look for career paths where there may be, a total career path that I'll go from a manager to a, director to a VP, etc. But there, the progression is more in terms of the skills that you acquire. So that is what is going to happen. Third is, instead of an upward mobility, you will have specialization which is going to come in. Fourth, I think the final point that I want to say is that instead of direct and manage, now you have to build and work in teams. To summarize, what I would like to indicate is that, look, emerging tech are here to stay. But from the student's perspective, what I would recommend all the educators is give the opportunity for your students to fail and then adapt, stand up, and grow. That tenacity has to come in, because the minister talked about passion and compassion. I feel success is dependent on chances and choices. So back to you, Pranjal. Thank you very much. Hello.
Pranjal, are you there?
So, Shobha, we can ask, Anurag to speak because he was the next speaker.
Yeah, maybe Pranjal has got cut off. Hi, everybody. This is Anurag. I'll probably just carry on the discussion. I've absolutely been loving this conversation. I think the diversity of perspectives, starting with Bijoy, taking the migrants lens, Mr. Arun Jain, talking about the design thinking lens and what's the opportunities that it means for us and the industry. Hemal talking about his realities at Dell and what is he seeing changes there, and finally Lokesh, giving so many examples around impact of technologies on workplace. So let me just see if I can add to this conversation by talking about a consultant's perspective. So I work for EY, and I have had the privilege of working across sectors, talking to companies across sectors, and watching them carefully in terms of what are they seeing, what's the impact of COVID, what's the implications for the hundreds of people, the thousands probably who've dialed in today into this conference, and what does it mean for them. So I think all the speakers have made this point, and I'll reiterate again that I think what COVID has done is accelerated some of the the future of work trends that we've been talking about for a while now. The discussions we've been having about the impact that technology and automation will have on jobs, skills, and ways of working. There is no doubt about it that there is an incredible amount of conversation today about impact on jobs. Which are the jobs that will disappear? How much? Given the challenges, will it get accelerated? What is the number? But I think what we could probably do is to take a forward-looking view that given what's been happening in the business environment, and given what COVID has done, what are the big trends and what are the takeaways from there? The number one trend I'll pick up is around remote working. And while some of my co-panelists did mention it, let me dwell a little deeper, because I think at least in the short to medium term, there is a very significant implication. Now, as I go talking to companies across sectors, almost interestingly, every sector, almost every organization has figured out a way of working 90, 95, even 98% remote. I mean, 3 months back, some of them used to say that X jobs, it's impossible to work remote. A majority of those jobs have moved remote. Now, as hopefully lockdown eases up, things start hopefully going back to normal. The big question that organizations are asking is, what is the percentage of remote working that we want to institutionalize? There are some great
Pranjal, I think Anurag has dropped off. Can you probably take some questions or?
Shobha, I got that. I also dropped off for a few seconds. So, I think we'll have to, the main question which is coming through across, and I saw some of those which have been asked in the chat post as well, are really about what are the skills which are required in the future. So, I think while organizational changes are going to happen, the very key question is students today, young professionals, should they equip themselves with? So I wonder if any of the panelists would like to take that question.
I will take it, Pranjal. So
I think
okay,
Anurag is also back.
Yeah.
So
So if
go ahead, answer the question, then we'll go to Anurag.
So my engineering school friends, I have spent all my life now 30 years on technologies, talent, and skills. So I used to be in Wipro very long time, and then has been in retail and Geo for last 15 years, and before that Wipro maybe around 7-8 years. So I noticed any emerging technologies, they give actually a lot of opportunities for developing the skills. So one of the panelists talked about the life of the skills which remain relevant. Arun has seen that, we saw it in Wipro, talent migration with value migration. So earlier, our talent from India was going to work in US, Europe, and different parts of the world. And when we figured it out subsequently, that value can also actually migrate with the talent. So we housed our talent in offshore centers in Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad, and got actually value from different parts of the world coming in. Now you are in a time of furthering, accelerating that advantage. So if you focus on the emerging technologies, like I'll tell you, 10 years ago, we all were debating, it was looking like hypothetical. The skills like in AI, machine learning, mobile internet, cloud and edge computing, blockchain, augmented virtual reality, Internet of Things, advanced robotics, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, advanced material science, advanced oil and gas, renewable energy, energy storage, next-gen genomics, and space technology. If you heard this 10 years ago, you imagine what you were thinking about, it is impossible. Look at the top 5 highest market cap companies of the world and the top 3-4 highest market cap companies of India. What they do, they actually leverage exactly these technologies and these skills. That's why their market cap is disproportionately higher. When your Microsoft, Amazon, etc., are in 1.5, 1.6 trillion dollar kind of market capital companies, some of the countries are also of not that kind of GDP. So essentially, you focus on these technologies, which is going to be another 5 to 10 years. You may be thinking how to focus on them. One is at actually knowing level. Second is the doing level. So as far as knowing, it is actually free. It is virtual. You can learn from MIT and Stanford sitting here in your Bangalore or Hyderabad or in Chennai schools. And in terms of doing has, because of the digital enablement that like companies like Geo, ours, have done in this country and worldwide similarly. So you can actually start doing from anywhere, any of these technologies. These are essentially digital technologies. So for engineering friends and students, please focus on all the emerging technologies. The new emerging technologies which are coming to be relevant next 10 years are likes of quantum computing, which actually China is far ahead, going ahead of us and challenging us in the border. So quantum computing, kind of unhackable internet, hyper personalized medicine, digital money, anti-aging drugs, AI discovered molecules, settlement mega constellations, and quantum supremacy. One is quantum computing, second is quantum supremacy, which China is trying to take and US is competing. You all start thinking of these emerging technologies for the next 10 years, my friends. That is required for you and the nation and the world, and for whichever company you work for, to create disproportionate value in those companies. That is for engineering students. If you want to serve India, please focus on farmers. His one child is the soldier, another child is a migrant worker, and he is not able to farm his farmland. He needs agriculture technologies like Arun was talking about. He needs IoT, he needs AI, he needs actually all the emerging technologies to be leveraged to create a disproportionate value in preparing food, making food, producing food for this nation, who is actually alone feeding this country today. Our agriculture GDP is growing. It was growing in 2008-9. It is growing today. That's why we are happy people sitting and doing digital conferences. Thank you. Take care of the farmer and his two children. One is a soldier, another is a migrant worker.
Thank you, Vijay. We'll go back to Anurag for completing your point, Anurag. I think the key issue really, which I would like to also summarize here, is that students and faculty and institutions have to go beyond silos. You know, a computer science graduate has to learn finance as well, and a finance graduate should be able to understand what is coding. So the silos that we have grown up with, they have to break, because blended learning is, I think, the most important skill in today's world, both for students as well as young professionals. So, Anurag, a quick take from you, and then we'll end the session.
I'm sorry, Pranjal, for getting logged off. I don't know what's the reason. Can I take? How much time do we have?
So, I mean, if you can take 3 minutes or so, and then we'll close, because we'd like to close on time because we were running on behind schedule.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was making a point around remote working and the implications for professionals currently and people getting into the workforce. Now, today, a lot of companies are taking are trying to decide on what is the percentage of remote working that they should institutionalize. And there's now an interesting conversations around that. If we look at all our jobs, can we decide on which jobs can potentially be permanently work from home, which would be work from office, and which are all the jobs in between where we're okay people working remotely 2 days a week, 3 days a week, etc. Now, what it's done, the interest is that there is this trend called talent liquidity or talent anywhere that started emerging. Because if for certain roles or for certain jobs, geographical boundaries break down, location of talent, location of the person becomes irrelevant. In services business, we are already seeing a big implication. So in consulting, for example, in technology, we are already implication where a country like India, with the combination of high quality and at the right cost, has a big advantage where we're looking at resourcing on global projects and so on. I see that talent liquidity, talent anywhere as a very big implication. The other fallout of remote working is on diversity. potentially, if I'm seeing more and more companies looking at flex employment. This could be also be a great opportunity for homemakers, for women who want to get back into the work but have not been able to do that because of location considerations, travel considerations, etc., etc. So there's a significant opportunity that remote working is opening up. The interesting implication that I'm seeing is in the area of contingent or gig workforce. And again, I wanted to talk about that as a concept to students who are probably listening in. Now, I was looking at EY data on what are we seeing trends on contingent on gig workforce. Interestingly, there were about 12% of the companies that we were engaging with pre-COVID that were talking about increasing their gig or contingent workforce. Interestingly, come July, that has gone up to almost about 32 to 35%. So almost one third of the companies that we are talking to are talking about increasing gig workforce. Now, some of you might know India is already the number one location in terms of gig workforce. India is the largest gig workforce in the world. I think it's a very interesting opportunity for people who are looking at even non-traditional employment models. It's still very low in terms of comparison to permanent workforce, but important is to understand what are the skills that companies are looking at where they are open to gig workforce. And finally, the last trend I want to talk about is around reskilling. I think it's been touched upon a few times by my fellow panelists. I'll just share some data quickly. We did work with FICCI a couple of years back where we realized that in sectors like technology, IT services, the workforce will require new skills in the next 3 years. Two-thirds of the workforce will require new skills. I mean, in banking and financial services, it was almost 45 to 50%. Now that's massive. Now what it's doing is it's putting a lot of pressure on employability. So no longer you can assume that if I was to come out with a particular graduate degree, that assures me 40 years of working life. It's evident depending on the skill set. The perishability of skills is 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, etc. And hence the need for upskilling is very, very critical. COVID has again accelerated it. Last example, I was consulting a pharma company. It's a mid-sized pharma company, 150 sales force. COVID struck. They realized that they had to online. 120 of the 150 sales force has already gone online, and they're completely focusing on a new channel, a non-traditional channel that did not exist. So need to upskill, need to change core skills. Extremely critical area, be it somebody coming into the workforce looking for your first job or already employed. So those are some 2 or 3 trends but in the interest of time, let me hand it back to Kanchal.
Thank you, Anurag. I think, I'm going to close now at some. Career. Young workforce will not wait too much, and the concept of job itself is changing, as you said, from gig to skill based. So I hope things change at 360-degree level, and it's not just waiting for somebody else to take a step. So with that, I'd like to close the session. Thank everybody, and hand it over back to Vicky.
Thank you, Pranjal, and all the panelists. I think this was an extremely interesting session where one could understand that what are the impending changes that are going to be in the business world, and how the skill set requirements are changing, and what is required from or expected from, or what are the change employability skills that are expected out of the new graduates and also mid-career professionals, because there is always a shifting of skill sets that's going to happen. So with this, we will take a break of about 20 minutes. But do log in for the next very interesting session that is on the new age industry academia engagement. And we have a very powerful set of panelists. Our moderator and chair is going to be Mr. Mohandas Pai, chairman of Manipal Global Education. We have Dr. Ajit Ranade, president and chief economist, Aditya Birla Group, Professor Tan Chi, President NUS Singapore, Mr. Andreas Schleicher, Directorate of Education and Skills OECD, Professor V. Ramagopal Rao, Director IIT Delhi, and Professor Rishikesh T. Krishnan, Director IIM Bangalore, is going to be joining with us. So do come back. And once again, a very big thank you and a big applause to this esteemed panelist that just completed the session. Thank you so much.
You are noting it down? You note it down? Hmm? So, wait. So these names you had now?
Good afternoon, Andreas. Thank you for joining in. Professor Sancheti, I don't know whether you have met Dr. Andreas earlier.
No, I didn't have any chance. Good afternoon, Professor Andreas. Very nice to see you. I'm Sandeep Sancheti, Vice Chancellor of SRM, and I'm also part of FICCI Higher Education Committee, and therefore we get a lot of chance to meet and learn about each other and contribute also.
Dr. Rao from Delhi IIT has also joined it.
Welcome, Professor Rao. Very nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Unable to see him right now on the frame, but
yeah, he is there. If you he's in one of the frames, you'll have to probably move your.
Okay, I'll try.
Well, Mr. Mohandas Pai has also joined in. Welcome, Mohan.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mohan. Sandeep here. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
I can see him, but I don't know whether he's, yeah. I can see his name. Nidhi, may I request you to please check with the others?
Yes, I'm doing so.
Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Ranade had mentioned that he may be delayed in joining by 10 minutes.
Nidhi, you said something?
Nidhi was trying to convey that Dr. Ranade may join little late by 10 minutes.
Mohan, you have joined thrice. So there are 3 Mohandas Pai. Maybe yes.
Can you hear?
Yes, Mohan. Yeah, we are able to hear you and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
So are we starting now, Shubha?
Good morning, Mohan.
Good morning. Now?
So we'll just wait for
yes.
NUS President, and Dr. Rishikesh T. Krishnan.
Okay.
They've written that they're finding difficulty in signing in. I'll just check with the office and immediately get this done.
Email and all that. You ask for an email, then you got to input that code. See how they come in.
Yeah, right, sir. Right. Sir. Yeah.
Technology is always demanding, Mohan.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Thank you so much. Very nice to meet you again. Thank you so much.
Job in sunny south in Chennai.
It's a bit different now. It's been very rainy these days. It's like Bangalore or Mangalore weather now in Chennai. very enjoyable, very pleasant. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
I'll ask Professor Sancheti to summarize it for you.
No, very well, excellent, fantastic inputs. All speakers were very good and lot to learn. At least for me, I can say lots of Q&A also. Of course, we limited the session because of the break. We hope that this one would be even better than the first one with your leadership and many other expert panelists.
Hi, Mohan. How are you?
Hi.
Good afternoon, Dr. Anand.
Hi, Shubha. How are you? Good, good.
Some more busy now than ever.
It's true. I was with your other friendly organization where both of us are there, RBI. So I had to rush out of that.
Oh.
With the governor.
Oh, really?
So, may I suggest that we join in? Maybe Professor Krishnan can join in later because most of the panelists are here. Okay, NUS president is also not joined. So, Rajesh, can you check with the NUS president?
Yeah. I'm doing that. I'm just calling up him.
They have some issues joining to this. They will join to audio.
Here we can start, and Professor Tan can join.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And Dr. Ranade also probably had to leave a little early, so we think I think we start off.
1:30, 1:35 is okay. I think anyway the session is for 1 hour, right, Mohan?
Yeah.
Yes.
15 minutes. So you
1
can
or 15 minutes.
when you want to leave, we'll give you questions too.
Sure.
So
Thank
Rajesh, please get us live.
Yeah, please. Yeah, you can start. Yeah.
Is Dr. Krishnan,
Dr. Ram Gopal is here.
Okay.
Dr. Krishnan, it seems, is having a problem joining, but my team is helping him out.
Okay.
So please give me a countdown, whoever is.
Yeah. You put in PT, it goes all over the place. So when you put the link, you must tell them how to navigate, see the screen, and do what, and put what, and all that. That'll be much better because you say just press the code and all that. Because it
There's a
asks the
password.
email.
We did a dry run. We did a dry run yesterday with the.
Some of us didn't come. No, I know, Shobha. I know. For the run, Shobha. Too many dry runs. Chuck, how many do you do per day?
Don't ask me. At least 4 or 5 back to back. I can't even go to the loo sometimes. Going to the bathroom is a problem. Forget about tea and coffee.
Shiv, will you let me know when we are going live? Give a countdown.
इसको भी quickly बोलो, इसको भी इसको श्री कृष्ण को ठीक हो एन का नंबर कौन सा थोड़ा हैंडी है क्या मैं ढूंढ नहीं पा रहा हूं बात तो कर रहा हूं ना
Rajesh, you're not on mute. So I think we are all live.
Okay.
So welcome back to this session on New Age Industry Academia Collaboration. And as I mentioned, we have a very dynamic panel over here. So may I take this opportunity to welcome our chair and moderator, Mr. Mohandas Pai, Chairman Manipal Global Education, and he's also a mentor to FICCI for both education, skill, and many other subject matters. We also have with us Dr. Ajit Ranade, President and Chief Economist, Aditya Birla Group. Professor Tan Shi, President NUS Singapore, is going to be joining us shortly. We have with us Dr. Andreas Schleicher, Directorate of Education and Skills, OECD. We also have with us Professor V. Ramagopal Rao, Director, IIT Delhi, And we will be joined by Professor Rishikesh T. Krishnan, Director, IIM Bangalore. So with this, I hand over to you, Mohan, for excellent session. Looking forward to it.
This panel, I welcome the panel members to this panel. We're going to speak today on new age industry academia collaboration. When you talk about COVID-19 is an inflection point for the world economy, and when it rises again, we're going to see who is going to rise, what is going to happen. But one thing is very clear: innovation and the knowledge economy will determine the future. We already see the rise of digital monopolies globally. Companies like Apple, Microsoft are close to $2 trillion in value, and nobody believed there could be $2 trillion. And they're dominating the world in their ecosystem because they're all across the world. And now we are in the digital era. We have accelerated coming to the digital era. And the digital era, innovation and knowledge is going to be the key determinant for success. And that's the reason industry and academia have to come close together, because academia is supposed to be the entity which creates knowledge, and industry the entity which also creates knowledge partially and also uses the knowledge to provide products and services to consumers all around the world. So in this new age, the digital era, what kind of collaboration should be there? We have members from academia, we have members from industry, and we have members from policy, and it's a very exciting panel. So I think we should start here. Obviously, there are two parts of the equation. One is industry and one is academia, and the gap should not be wide. So let me start by inviting Dr. Ajit Ranade to speak. Each panel member will speak for 5 minutes. Then we'll have a Q&A with questioning everybody else, and then we can have a summing up. Thank you very much. Dr. Ajit, over to you on this topic.
Thank you, Mohandas, and thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting and a very important session. I will confine my remarks for about 4-5 minutes. So first point is that as we seek economic growth opportunities in the coming years, notwithstanding the current pandemic episode, we will have to increasingly look for growth drivers which actually come out of innovation, whether it is in industry or even in services and even agriculture, I would say. Agriculture gets inputs or inputs like credit or fertilizer or water, electricity, but the real crucial inputs into agriculture perhaps is knowledge capital. So even in a conventional industry like agriculture, the need of the hour is innovation. And so that's the first point, that innovation is very key to not just industrialization 4.0, but all sustainable future economic growth. Second point, as you know, in the Indian context, our spending on R&D is actually barely, I think, 1.5% or even less, less than 1%. I'm not even going to compare it to peers to leaders in the world like Israel and some Northern European countries. But even if you compare us to our East Asian peers, we need to be at least 3 or 4 times more.
Hello.
This has to come not just from industry, but from the government, from the public sector, and academia. It's a joint, so R&D spending has to be substantially higher.
Unmute in a sense.
Sorry, can we just mute the other speakers?
I also don't see my picture.
Dr. Chan, can I request you to please put yourself on mute?
So second point is on R&D spending, which has to be substantially higher. Third point is that this industry academia partnership or association collaboration is of course very necessary, but sometimes the hesitation on both sides that industry is sometimes very.
So I should see mute or unmute. Okay, I have put it on mute, but I don't see my picture at all.
Maybe the controller can be put in a mute. So we have on industry and academia collaboration, I would say let us learn from some of the best practices we have in India itself. In particular, I would like to point out to an organization which is more than 30 years old, It's called SINE, Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. SINE. It's actually not a society anymore. It's a company. It is set up with the leadership of IIT Bombay, but in fact, it has had very successful. It has been an incubator for companies. Let me remind, of course, that companies, big, great companies in the world like Lenovo of China or Google of America, they all actually took birth on university campuses. In fact, they were incubated there. So similarly, there are hundreds and thousands of such opportunities, whether in the field of not just information technology or software, but also variety of fields from pharmaceuticals to materials and so on, renewable energy, and so there is a huge scope. But the structure we already have. My third point is that we already have the structure, that the rules about who has the rights of the intellectual property is such created, who will benefit. In fact, as you know, if Stanford University took a very small stake in this relatively unknown company called Google, and Mohandas Pai just mentioned what is the market value of it, imagine how much benefit Stanford universities must have got. Same thing with Lenovo. So the arrangement that we have at SINE, and there are many other examples. I don't want to single out only SINE, but they are very early on. They started 30 years ago. But we have many such examples now in India. So what the universities can do is take a share in, so that they can benefit from future profits. Now remember, 8 out of 10 such startups will not succeed. I'm being not very pessimistic, but the 2 that will succeed will more than pay up for all the investment that is done in all 10 of them. And this kind of orientation and mindset has to be encouraged on both sides. And I would say that all the great products that have come out, or technologies, whether it is internet, which started off as a UUCP initiative from universities, or the World Wide Web, they all have university origins, by the way. They all have university origins. But in other systems, especially in our system, there was a transition path. Media Lab of MIT. I think something similar we can adopt in India, and be successful models that have done. So and now we, with the support of Niti Aayog as well, there are a lot of the structures already in place. The right kind of incentives. Normally, instinctively, we feel that industry must be, academia must be in an ivory tower, is pure pursuit of knowledge, no pursuit of profit, no pursuit of it. That is simply not workable. And we have found the right way, the right mix. Like I said, the incubators, the commercial orientation, the IP creation rules, and so on. So let me stop here. I'll come back during the Q&A. Thanks, Mohandas.
Thank you, Doc. That's very interesting. We'll lay down the framework, what has to be done in future. Professor Tan, please come on the video, and over to you.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can
you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Come on, please come on.
Okay, good. Thank you. I was experiencing some problem getting on this meeting, but thanks very much for having me. I would just highlight 2 aspects of how we do it in terms of education. There are 4 broad strands in terms of education, how we engage with the industry. One, all our programs would have an industry advisory committee. And this is where we tap on the expertise from the industry to regularly look at our curriculum and refine them as it need be. So that keeps us actually, I would say, more ready for any sort of impending changes as the industry would see them. The second thing is that in terms of our teaching, especially for courses that are very industry related, we have other than the professors, we have a track known as the practice track. And the practice track brings in industry practitioners, right? Some on a full-time basis and some on a part-time basis. Those on a full-time basis, they are mostly practitioners who have tremendous experience in the industry. They have just retired, and so they are still very current. So we bring them in as practice professors. But of course, there are also other intermediate practitioners who still would have a lot of experience. They'll come in and help us with the teaching. The third strand is on internships. Internships is in a way very prevalent. 70% of our students do an internship in the industry. And in some courses, like for instance, in engineering and in computer science, internships are compulsory. And students would need to spend 1 semester out of the 8 semesters to be spent in a company where they do things that are related to the program or the course that they are doing. Now, we have a group of specialized programs, and this we model after the co-op program in the West, where the internship component is even more enhanced. It involves 3 semesters of internships, 1.5 years of internships within that 4 years. So we have actually done this for our 3 new courses, cybersecurity, data science and analytics, as well as business analytics courses. Our premise is this, that these are fields and areas which are moving very quickly. And sometimes professors may not be able to keep track of the rapid changes. And that's why we need to bring our students, right, to be exposed to what are the real challenges and the issues that these companies are facing. Now, students may not have the methodology to solve some of these problems, but that's actually where we see that we build bridges between industry and academia, where the students will bring back the problems to the professors who will help them solve the problems, and by so doing also expose our professors to the new thinkings out there. The fourth strand is that NUS, we promote entrepreneurship. So we have an entire mechanism, NUS Enterprise, where we basically encourage entrepreneurial training. So it started about 20 years ago when we attach our students to startups in Silicon Valley. That was in 2001. Right now, we have students that are spread across 14 locations around the world, in Silicon Valley, New York City, Toronto. There are 5 locations in Europe, in Munich, in Stockholm, in Lausanne, in Tel Aviv, and Haifa. And then in China, there are 3 locations, in Shanghai, in Beijing, and in Shenzhen. We have a few locations also in Ho Chi Minh City, in Vietnam, in Jakarta, Bandung, and Yogyakarta in Indonesia. So these students actually spend 1 full year attached to startups, and they actually learned a lot during this 1 year experience. Startups are usually small. They are expected to do the function. So what we tell them is that you learn everything from the janitor all the way to the CEO, right? Then, you really get a good spread of this. And for the last 20 years, I think we have been refining this program. And in the last 10 years or so, our graduates from this program have started more than 700 companies. And they have also raised about 600 million in the last 5 years, which is about 10% that is raised by Singapore startups in the last 5 years. So these are the 4 strands that, how we sort of get our education and framework to be more closely aligned with the industry. I'll just briefly touch on how do we do that in research. Now, in research, it is extremely important. We encourage our professors to work with companies, especially these days. A lot of the tech companies I would say they invest a lot in research and they are very advanced in research, especially in digital technologies. So we encourage our professors to work very closely with some of these companies. And the government has a scheme. These are called corporate laboratories, where there's substantial investment. And the idea is that the company, which is usually a medium size or a big company, would invest 1/3 of the cost. The university puts up 1/3 of the cost in terms of manpower, and the government supports by 1/3 of the cost. All right, so it can be a 50 million or 100 million sort of endeavor. So we, for instance, we work with Wilmer on food science and technology, and the total worth is about 100 million, and they pay 1/3, the government pays 1/3, and we contribute 1/3. And the IP is shared between the company and the university. So this has been a very sort of fruitful way where we engage with the industry in terms of research. I'll stop here and I'll be happy to take questions during the Q&A. Thank you.
Very, very good, because you hit the nail on the head, and that is, how do you make it work? Because we all know the theory, and to make it work, you have to build a network, you have to build relationships, you have to get them involved. Essentially, the network and the relationship, and you've been doing it for very long. I think it's very, very valuable. Andreas, over to you now. Muted, Andreas.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so you can go ahead. Yeah, I think it should work now. Thank you very much. First of all, I think we should think about industry, academic education, not just in terms of putting today's industries and universities together, but to really aim at integrating the world of work and the world of learning. And we have actually around the world very good examples for this, transforming both industries and academia. In a way, you know, we used to learn to do the work, and suddenly learning has become the work, and in a lifelong, life-wide perspective. And starting with, you know, making workplaces places of learning. I think that's crucially important, basically, to create an enabling ecosystem where there are greater incentives for companies actually to provide high-level skills to individuals. In Europe, that's been a long-standing tradition, but you can see that actually now in many places around the world. I think the internship programs Dr. Tan mentioned, I think, is a great example. I mean, it's very clear that universities cannot be up to speed with the latest developments in the industry. So rather than having universities providing second-hand kind of education on this high-level areas, basically it's better to get people to places where they get this first-hand experience. Whether it's a startup or whether it's working in a big industry, I think internship or combined workplace and study programs are very successfully deployed in a number of countries. That's sort of on the industry side. You know, how can we make places of work, places of learning? I would make the same argument on the academic side. We should not equate academic learning with universities. There's a lot of high-level skill development happening in many types of educational institutions. And in fact, and I think India is a good example as well. I think we overrate the education provided by universities, and we underrate the education provided by many other institutions. And that has to do with how we award, certify and recognize learning. I think that's the other big chunk in this for how to make this work in practice. We can talk about, you know, transforming academia and transforming industries, but if our credentialing system remain as lumpy and coarse as they are today, we will not incentivize learning in micro steps, basically, particularly if we want to distribute learning in different ways over the life cycle, creating greater incentives for people to continually upgrade their skills rather than just investing one-off early on. It is a matter of finding ways to recognize what people learn, how people learn, where people learn, and when people learn. So I think this is for me a task where actually industry and academia and government can work together to build stronger qualification and certification systems. This is happening. If you look to some of the countries that are doing really well on the lifelong, life-wide learning spectrum. I don't think anybody beats Sweden these days. Now, over 40% of adults are actually engaged in some form of continued learning. And that has to do with the fact that actually, if you learn a little bit, you're going to get recognized for this. And that is becoming a currency that you can actually deploy. You can study at the workplace. You can go to a university. You can actually integrate and combine different learning pathways. I think that's a fundamental prerequisite, that kind of certification system, skills recognition systems to integrate academia and learning, and also to put, universities in their right place. The last point I want to make, and that's a tricky one, is actually the capacity to actually extract value from skills. I'll give you an example. If you actually look at adult skills, on our international assessment, Japan came out first. Basically, it has a very strong skill distribution in the adult population on many different types of dimensions of skills. But then you ask yourself, so why is Japan not so productive? And it has to do with the fact that actually few people get the chance to translate their skills into better jobs and better lives. Basically, the economy is not very good to extract value from the skills of people. If you go to the United States, actually, most people overestimate the skill distribution in the United States. It's actually very patchy. You have a, few there's a high end of the skill distribution, but there's just a long trail of very poorly skilled. But no economy in the world beats the United States in terms of extracting value from the skills of people. Why do so many people from around the world go to the United States to work? Because they can monetize their skills. And I think actually that's another part that we need to keep in mind when we want to integrate academia and the industry. How do we actually, create that ecosystem that transforms, better skills into better jobs and better lives? But that's sort of the harder part to deal with. The first part, I think actually we have many good solutions all around the world that we can talk about. And I'll leave it here.
That's fascinating. The big point that comes out is how do you integrate the world of work and the world of learning? And in India, we have a very large IT industry who have set up their own corporate universities. And sadly, our universities are not integrated with them. And they probably train 200,000 people in deep technology across. Maybe our universities can join with them, recognize and certify the learning they get inside, and get them to participate in the university program somewhat to get a degree. And that will be a two-way. That's a fascinating idea. And the capacity to extract value. I think you are right. The most innovative societies are places where you can extract value, because value extraction drives capital, and the capital drives innovation. It's a self-sustaining system. And I think Singapore has done fairly well. It's a small economy, but I think they've done fairly well in value extraction. Now we have Professor Ramagopal Rao, Director of IIT Delhi, which leads India in technology. Yes, Dr. Rao.
Thank you very much. And I think some of the points which Professor Tan and other speakers covered, I think if you look at our educational system, three things we are supposed to be doing. One is education. That is where, again, as Professor Tan mentioned, the industry can participate through professors of practice kind of a thing. For example, at IIT Delhi, we started 3 new centers or schools in the last 1 year: a center for automotive research, a center for cyber physical systems, a school for AI. And there we said we are following a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 model. 1/3 faculty will be core faculty, 1/3 faculty will be faculty from industries, and 1/3 will be joint faculty from other departments. So we are telling these schools that unless you get one industry person, one person from outside your school, you cannot recruit the core faculty member. So that's how we are growing these new entities. That is something which is working pretty well right now, I should say. I think that can be a model. And the second aspect of academic institutions is the knowledge generation, the research aspect of it. I think bringing in the industries would always bring in the relevance to our research, because industries are always looking at short-term kind of problems, and that brings that urgency, and that is when faculty members get challenged and deliver solutions and become known, and that way they can feed to each other. So therefore the relevance part of it gets strengthened, but also the delivery part of it. A lot of work gets done in our academic institutions, but not much of it sees the light of the day. but I think through the interactions with the industries, the delivery part gets strengthened. So when I talk about R&D, I look at R&D as relevance and delivery. I think the research and development part of it is always happening, but this relevance and delivery are becoming very important for institutions such as ours now. So therefore, the second aspect, again, the industry participation will make a huge impact. The third part is the innovation. I think this innovation culture is something that is now being asked more and more from academic institutions. For example, at IIT Delhi, we looked at, how are we doing with respect to innovation? We define innovation as inception to impact. I think innovation not necessarily be how much of money you have made and all of that. Starting from inception, an idea to an impact. I think that is what we look at innovation as, and there we started looking at how well are we doing in terms of innovation. You can count in terms of number of patents, the technology transfers and all of that. For example, one interesting thing we did recently was we looked at 5 years ago how many patents were we filing. We looked at number of papers we are writing to the patents we are filing. For every 100 papers, we were filing one patent 5 years ago. Now we started to look at why is it so poor. And then when we started to put in place the processes and mechanisms, now we have reached a stage where for every 17 papers, we are filing a patent. So IIT Delhi, for example, in 2019, filed 153 patents, and next year we will be filing more than 200 patents. The idea is to generate a patent portfolio and then go to industries and see how we can work with each other and take things to the next level. But that is not again just industries, the startup culture. I think now the startups at IIT Delhi are acting as a bridge between industries and academia. That is a new culture that is now beginning to happen in our institutions. Particularly, IIT Delhi is doing very well when it comes to startups, because even if you look at the unicorns that have come out of India, come out of the entire country, India, it's like something like 31 unicorns have been founded by Indians, Indian origin people all over the world. 16 of these 31 unicorns have come out of IIT Delhi alumni alone. One single institution in this country has created half of the unicorns that any Indians of Indian origin people have created. I think there is a strength that lies in academic institutions such as ours when it comes to innovation. So we started to look at what is that IIT Delhi is doing right, so that so many of our alumni are getting into entrepreneurship space. And these are the processes that we are trying to strengthen. Through these startups, now we are trying to engage with the industries. As Professor Dr. Ranade actually mentioned, IIT Delhi now is holding equity in these companies. Any big company you look at, any startup you look at in India, Flipkart to Zomato, Snapdeal, all of them have come out of IIT Delhi alumni. If we had that 4% or 5% equity in these companies, we wouldn't have really needed to go back to government for any of our funding. But that's a mistake that we did at some point of time, and we don't want to continue to make the mistakes anymore. So we are now doing this early stage startups, investing our money in these early stage startups. We have created a fund at IIT Delhi. We are actually investing in our student ideas. We want to be the first person to invest in these companies and take some equity, and then hope that some of them in the future will become the Flipkarts and all of that. I think that is where industries can come in, and that is where the startups can play that bridging role between academia and industry. I think in this country, we have been waiting for a very long time for a love marriage to happen between academia and industry. That is actually not happening. I think what I think needs to happen is an arranged marriage between academia and industry, with government playing the matchmaking role. And I think the love will come after that. I think the government policies, therefore, are very key for industry and academia to come together. Though it's happening through startups, but I think the policies will play a very major role in making this matchmaking. Thank you very much.
It's very fascinating. India is a matchmaking country, not a country where everybody falls in love. Of course, some of us fall in love, but I think matchmaking is extremely important. And matchmaking requires effort on both sides, and it requires a matchmaker. And I think the matchmaker has to be academia. Shobha, we're getting very, very interesting points. What I'll recommend is please note down all the points made by these great speakers and prepare a document which showcases what everybody is doing, because there's a tremendous amount of learning for all your FICCI education members, because all of them are telling us how they address the gaps in the system, and especially Dr. Rao in India, because Professor Tan is in Singapore. There's a different way of doing, and of course Andreas is in the OECD. He's got a lot more money and he's seen it happen. So I think if you're able to say that, look, these are the institutions which actually done it, I think many of them can do it. All right, now, Dr. Rishikesh, you are from the management part of the world. We wait for your views. Please come on.
Thank you, Mohan. Good day. I would like to just build on the comments which the earlier speakers made. The first point I would like to make is just building on what Ajit said. I think in India too, we have seen several good ideas come out of academia and get commercialized. To my mind, in recent years, the most impactful has been the rotavirus vaccine, which came out of work done by Dr. Ban at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. His research came up with some possible ways to address the virus, and ultimately it's got commercialized by Bharat Biotech in Hyderabad. I think the challenge there has been that it's taken a really long time for that commercialization to happen. I think the research went back to the 1980s, but the actual commercial product came out only a few years ago. So one big challenge we face is how we can accelerate this whole process of going from the lab to the market. And in this context, I would also add that one very important element of this is choosing the right problem. I think one hats off to Dr. Ban for taking up a diarrheal infection, which affects lots and lots of infants in India. And infant mortality is a big problem that we face here. He obviously, one can't solve the whole of infant mortality overnight, but he took one small chunk of that and very effectively managed to manage that through his research and the collaboration with Bharat Biotech. So I'd like to underline this problem choice as one important part of the story. The second thing I would like to mention here is the importance of having a startup policy in institutions. I was just hearing Professor Ram Gopal Rao talking about the importance of the government coming in as a matchmaker. But my own sense is there may be a few things we can do at the institution level itself to foster this kind of activity. One institute where I've seen that being done quite effectively is in IIT Madras. And the reason I'm underlining this particular concept is because typically in our institutions, faculty are evaluated based on their teaching, based on their research as measured by publications. But there's no distinct place for startups in that whole evaluation system. What IIT Madras has done very effectively is recognize that startup participation is a valid part of a faculty member's activity, brought that contribution to the startup into the evaluation process, and thereby given a whole lot of respect and legitimacy to faculty members getting involved in startups. To me, that will close one gap that will make it very meaningful for faculty to get involved in startup activity, and it will further reinforce the kind of progress which institutes like IIT Delhi have made already. So you may not need to rely on the government alone is the point I'm trying to make. Finally, let me just mention that in India, if we want companies to collaborate more closely with academia, we also need much more absorptive capacity within companies. Many times when you see work which is done in academia, particularly innovation, it's at a lower stage of the TRL index. It's typically more at the discovery and exploration stage, but you need good partners who can commercialize. Now, to have good partners who can commercialize, the companies themselves need to have a good expertise in that area to be able to absorb the idea or technology from academia. And I find that unfortunately in many cases, because we still have serious shortfall in terms of the amount of money we spend in R&D in companies and the resources we devote, companies don't have adequate absorptive capacity to take those ideas and run. So I believe in future, unless our Indian companies are also willing to develop that ability to take ideas at a slightly earlier TRL level and take it forward for commercialization, we are not going to see that kind of impact happening. So these are the three main points I wanted to make. Choose the right problems, have a good startup policy within universities to give legitimacy to startup activity, and third is build absorptive capacity in industry. Thank you.
Great talk by a strategist. Create focus on the problem, choose the right problem, create the proper policy, create absorption capacity. I think that is the core of what we need to do. Now, I have a question for all of you, and I would like all of you to answer, starting with in the reverse order with Professor Krishnan, Dr. Rao, Andreas, Professor Tan, and Ajit. Tell me, what great news? What is happening? How to grow it? Grow what you are doing 10x by 2025. What is required to grow everything 10x by 2025? Starting with Professor Krishnan.
Well, Mohan, you've done your usual trick of trying to bring in all this exponential kind of thinking. So I should have, predicted that in advance. I think the core is we need to build strong platforms. I think that the way to make all this 10x happen is you need to have more collaborative activity. Individuals are never going to make all this 10x happen. So which also means we have to do a little bit of focus and platform together. So maybe, for example, if I take my institution, maybe we can't solve all the problems in the world. Maybe we need to take a couple of problems and get more people to work on them. That's probably the only way I know, at least in the academic context, where we can have more impact, if not 10x, at least several x going forward.
For you, 10x by 2025 in IIT Delhi.
Yeah. In fact, we are thinking on those lines. For example, the startup initiative that we have taken. The last board meeting, FICCI, we have a similar to sign, which Dr. Ranade mentioned. IIT Delhi has indeed the oldest incubator in the country, FICCI, Foundation for Innovation and Technology Transfer. Now they have about 100 startups, kind of a thing. We are asking ourselves, how can IIT Delhi be involved in 1,000 startups?
Wow.
Now, if IIT Delhi needs to be involved in 1,000 startups, in what all different ways can we engage with these startups? Some startups might just make use of the facilities on the campus. Some startups might have faculty as mentors. Some startups might have physical space on the campus. So through all of these ways, now we want to take it from 100 startups to 1,000 startups. That is where we are now charting out plans, and that is what we want to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years kind of a time frame. And also the faculty-led initiative. At IIT Delhi, we have a scheme called FIRE, F-I-R-E, Faculty Innovation and Research-Driven Entrepreneurship. Under this scheme, we want to make sure that every fifth faculty member at IIT Delhi would have a startup or would be involved in a startup. That is 1 in 5. And we have almost like 600 faculty members, and then 1 in 5 is 100 startups. 100 faculty members having a startup is what we are looking at right now. And under this FIRE scheme, we are giving our faculty members a 50 lakh grant if they want to do a translational research. So we give them 50 lakh money to start their company. We give them 3 years of leave, of which the first year is a sabbatical. They can take a fully paid leave for first year, 2 years of unpaid leave, 3 years they can spend time on their startup, and they can. So we have also a policy for them to make use of the facilities and all that. So I think once the faculty members get into the startup mode, then the PhD students will join hands. That is how the deep tech innovation will happen on our campuses. Otherwise, we are doing well in the country when it comes to startups, but somebody is creating an app there, app here. I think, but I think the deep tech innovation needs to come out of IITs. That is where IIT Delhi is indeed playing a major role, and we have identified startups as a way for us to go to that next level, because we are already doing very well when it comes to startups. We are saying, why don't we increase it by 10x through all of these initiatives in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I think from the previous discussion, I like this idea of matchmaking, and I think the government can play some role in this, but matchmaking will never get you your 10x, basically. Yeah. If you want to get your 10x, you have to create a level playing field. And that means, and for me, it starts with basically creating a framework of skills and breaking the monopolies of current academic institutions to award degrees and qualifications. If you create a truly level playing field and understanding, these are the skills worth those kinds of credentials that is awarded for whoever provides those skills at the right level, I think you have the potential to actually dramatically expand the scope of the system.
Thank you. Professor, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
I think, yeah. Professor Tan. Yeah. Professor Tan.
Can you hear me now?
Sir, yes, sir, we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you. So I'll suggest that we start small but get the right people to be involved. Very often, if you just simply assign a person, that person may not be suitable. I would say, like, for instance, if you want to set up things that are more related to industry, it'll be better if somebody who is more familiar with the industry, either from the academic side or from the practitioner side. The example which I've given you on the NUS Enterprise, we started in 2001, all right, 19 years ago, right? And that was our first location. We started by having 5 or 6 students in the first batch. And now we have like 60, 70 students over there. It takes some time for you to build a critical mass. And once you go past that critical mass, then it is very easy for you to scale up, all right? Because you can leverage on what you have, the mechanisms, as well as the people you have trained, because they will add sort of a further concreteness to your plans. So you have to start somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, as an economist, what is your solution to grow 10x in this area in the next 5 years?
Mohan, I have good news for you. 10x is a very modest target. I'm surprised that you're giving us only 10x. It's going to be 100x. And I'll tell you why I'm saying it. I'll tell you why I'm saying it. I mean, just to give a small example and give me a few minutes. Somebody invested 13 crores in a company called Ruchi Soya, which is now run by Patanjali, in the month of February, just 4 months ago. Today, that value is 1,500 crores. This is in the public domain. I'm not making it up. So if you believe that the industry academia collaboration is going to lead to, like what Professor Ram Gopal said about the incubation startup ecosystem being incubated on campuses like SINE, and if you have 100 or he said 1,000, all you need is 2 or 3 to succeed. That 0.1% investment of Stanford University in Google or 0.5% of Beijing University in Lenovo, or whatever, there's a company called Delivery. He mentioned so many IIT Delhi alumni. All you need is just a 1 or 0.5% investment, and that 1 or 2 success stories will make up for the remaining 900. That's the wonderful thing about startup. And I'm not the person who should tell you, you know this. But I want to just make 1 or 2 other points. So basically, I think we have the right model. Don't forget that we have initiatives like the Atal Tinkering Lab, the Atal Innovation Mission, the Tinkering Labs everywhere. But I want to mention a few other points. See, all said and done, academia is in the business of teaching, research, and knowledge creation. So their pursuit is that. And industry is in the pursuit of profits. So let's not impose these objectives on each other. But if you look at the convergence comes that both are pursuing excellence and both are ultimately pursuing solutions to society's problems or solutions to society's challenges. It can be Indian society, it can be global. It could be global problems like climate change, or it could be India's problem like how to reduce poverty. So to that extent, there is a convergence. But let's not, with due respect to professors who are here, let's not make it so artificially pressure on faculty that aap logon ko, you have to generate profits. That will come through this collaboration. So I just want to mention 3 or 4 examples. IISc in your own city, Bangalore, and Wipro have joined hands for robotics and 5G and 3D printing and metals. IIT Kharagpur and Wipro are in AI in healthcare. Samsung India has started Digital Academy at IIT Guwahati. And not just that, I want to mention even companies like General Mills who are collaborating with the Central Food Technical Research Institute for agriculture, and incidentally, since Professor Rishi is here, actually a great amount of collaboration happens between business schools and industry, because the HR practices, often, all the HR practices that we have in our industry or even in government, they come from the research and insight of professors from business schools. So let's not forget, the big schools like Harvard and London Business School and many, even IIMs, they generate case studies, they study, and their best practices even in the field of HR, is very, very important and is relevant to industry. So it's not only about this incubation labs and startup systems. It's also research insights which come from conventional fields like HR and strategy. That collaboration, let's not forget, because the future, Mohan, is all about knowledge and innovation-led growth. It's not going to be, agriculture is no longer about expanding acreage or increasing the yield of the crop. It's about knowledge intensity, like what Israel is doing in a desert land. They have high agricultural productivity. Or even in industry, most of the value is coming from innovation. It's not coming from producing more widgets. It's coming from innovation, and ultimately innovation which addresses social needs or a customer needs. So these things are, they are being generated in academia, even in business schools. And I believe that this academia industry, they used to say three-way partner. You said matchmaking. It's actually three ways: government, academia, and industry. So let's not assume automatically, the way Professor Rishi is from IIM, Professor Ram Gopal is from IIT, so they actually instinctively think of themselves as part of the government. But industry, academia has a different identity. So it's a triangle. The matchmaking is along a triangle. Government, an example of that is the Atal Innovation and Niti Aayog. Industry, academia is institutions like Singapore or IIMs and IITs, and industry organizations like mine. So it has to be a three-way linkage, a triangle. So I think I definitely am bullish about your 10x. We can I take this bet right now, and 2025 we'll talk about. I'll show you how 10x value is. I'm assuming 10x is in terms of market value, so definitely it'll happen.
Market value, I'm not of units of performance, because market value is a simpler thing. You get one company to come
So
and you see this 100
in terms of metric, if you're if you're asking me,
number.
so in terms of that metric, there is something called MOOC, Massive Online Open Curriculum Movement. So you take an excellent place like an IIT Delhi or IIT Bombay or IIM Bangalore and use that as a hub to reach out to the hundreds and thousands of colleges across India. And I think that also, that scale can come by, you said digital. The kind of adoption we have seen to digital during COVID, even demonetization could not achieve that. What COVID has achieved for digital India is 100 times more than what. So I think if you use the MOOC, and there I'd like to mention one big experiment going on in IIT Bombay called eYantra. So they conduct this annual robotics competition, and they reach out to thousands of colleges, not just in India, but all across Asia and rest of the world. And so this is one way of scaling up the online, massively online open access. And by the way, last point I want to make is that let's use competitions. Whether it is a competition for robotics, competition for design, competition for. So that is another way. It's like a lottery where one winner will make up for all the value of all the others. Thank you.
Creating medias that come, create platforms, create networks, move with caution, and create a critical mass, which is very important. Create open systems, aim high. But the big issue is we need the volumes to impact this country. This is a very large country. Now, if smaller country, even in Europe, you can impact, you can make a big impact because a mature system. But we are a very large country. India has to think very differently, because the number of institutions which can do 10x by 2025 is limited. The amount of money is limited. Shobha, I want to ask one more question before we answer some of the questions sent by the listeners. Is it okay? Shobha?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Now, this is a quick question to all of you again, because we got some people here. How do we foster cutting-edge innovation? Cutting-edge innovation means, we should be in exponential technologies which are very cutting-edge, which can lead the world. We should be in a very cutting-edge business models which can lead the world. Cutting-edge skills which can change the world. So I would like to start with Dr. Ram Gopal Rao, then we'll talk to Andreas, then Professor Dan, Ajit, and then Professor Krishnan, if that is okay. So Professor Ram Gopal Rao, cutting edge, leading for the world.
That's a good point, Mr. Pai. Before I go to that, I just wanted to highlight, the role of government. We somehow seem to be underestimating the role of government in this country. In the last 1 year, the tiny change they made to the CSR policy document Now this year we have seen 10 times more CSR funding at IIT Delhi. 10 times more compared to last year, because all that the government said is now you can use CSR to fund research in academic institutes. That's all what was needed. I think in a country like India, government has a major role to play through policies. I think we should not underestimate the role of government in a country like India particularly. I think on the innovation side, to me, it's all about unlike minds coming together. IITs could have done much more. Our biggest challenge today is we are very homogeneous as an entity. For example, when I say unlike minds, the unlike minds could be in terms of different attitudes. That is where industry and academia collaborating with each other is very, very important for innovation to happen. I say unlike minds from different cultures. I think our institutions, because we are not able to attract any international students, for whatever reasons that we have, is also hampering, the innovation culture on this campus. And one of the reasons is we say, of course, India is a very diverse country and all of that. But unfortunately, all our students, whether they come from Assam or Telangana, they all go through the same CBSE papers, same examinations. They take the same examination. They are all conditioned to think exactly alike. And when you put all of them on our campus, nothing much happens because they all are conditioned to think in the same way. I think the internationalization of our campuses is very essential right now. So at IIT Delhi, we are doing it very aggressively at the PhD level. For example, 500 fully paid PhD fellowships is what we have announced, and we are looking at 1,000 ASEAN students for all IITs to a Government of India scheme. I think the internationalization, the diversity in terms of cultures is important. Even the unlike minds in terms of disciplines. I think again this multidisciplinary kind of a nature, putting problem first and then looking for a solution to that problem is where multiple disciplines need to come together. So therefore, these unlike minds, we need to create the culture, on our campuses for them to interact with each other and innovate. I think that is very important. The immersion programs are also very important. The minds come together, but how do they know what the problems are? Immersion programs is again where industries can play a big role. As one of the panelists mentioned, this internship kind of opportunities. IIT Delhi students, we are starting from the last 2 years, we are sending our students to villages. I tell my students, go to a village, spend couple of months with a farmer, just see what are the problems a farmer in a remote area actually faces. Now, some of those problems look mundane and all of that, but they require very deep technologies to address them. And whether it is soil testing or productivity improvement, all of them need high-tech kind of solutions. But for these kids to understand what the problems are on the ground is very, very important. So creating these sort of immersion programs with hospitals, with industries, with villages, I think is becoming very important for all of us. I think that is how the innovation will happen. That is how we identify problems, bring people together, innovate. And these innovations, it need not be, once you create a solution to a problem, now the startup route is very well established in this country. I think they can go ahead and start these companies with institutional support and scale them up. And I think our future lies in startups. And I don't think there is any other way India can change other than through our startups coming out of these deep tech kind of areas.
Andrea.
Yeah, I would say that actually India is actually very good in creating exceptional talent. The question you should ask yourself is, why is that exceptional talent creating innovation in other countries and elsewhere in the world? That's, I think, the fundamental issue, really. And that has to do, I think I very much agree with Professor Rao here, that has to do with lack of internationalization. Innovation is always created where you connect the dots where the next idea is going to come from, which it means, thinking across the boundaries of subject disciplines, walking between industry and academia. It's those intersections, and the more kind of variety you can create in that, the more innovation are you going to see. The second point is about venture capital. I think why is the United States very good in, turning intellectual capital into innovation, because it provides a playing field for this. There is a lot of resources invested in ideas and with great risk taking. That's, I think, the second part, and that's also, I can see that happening in India, but certainly not at this scale. So I don't think the question is so much, creating the intellectual capital. The question is much more about the environment, the enabling environment to turn good ideas in innovation. Last point I want to make is, even if you create, innovation at the small scale, scaling innovation is yet a completely different challenge. And actually, a lot of startups are created in India, but once again, they turn their ideas into products elsewhere in the world. And I think those are the hard nuts to crack if you want to really become a kind of more innovative economy at scale. Then, if you look at the overall pipeline, I think also you need to rethink sort of some of the examination systems, the kind of credentialing again. If you reward the reproduction of fixed subject matter knowledge and reward people for the existing set of knowledge rather than creating new knowledge and questioning today's wisdom, I think that creates incentives for people. So I think you need to also, in the long run, rethink the way in which or the type of knowledge and skills that your education system and skill systems values. But I think the first and foremost point is really the enabling ecosystem that actually allows people with great skills to actually deploy them effectively.
About Professor Tan? Professor?
You have to unmute.
I can't control my side. Okay. So if you ask what is a university, I would say that what is key to a university is talents. Talented students, talented faculty, and even talented alumni. And one of the things is how do we leverage on the talents within the university? Quite key to this is actually the culture of the university. Does your culture actually, or your DNA promotes innovation? Right? Do you actually have a diverse group of talented people and who are actually free, right, to do and to think, along the lines that they love to do? And whether your students and your alumni are also sufficiently leveraged. I think that's key. And one useful thing is see what is happening in the tech companies of the world. Right. I feel that there are restrictions and constraints to our university structures that are in a way inhibiting us. So I recently have, last year I visited Huawei, and Huawei has about 200,000 workers. All right. The investment on research and development is $10 billion per year. Right. And that's a huge amount. The people are actually quite flexible in terms of what sort of research they want to do, although they generally focus in a certain direction. And what is interesting is that the company has a sort of a profit sharing. So everyone owns the company. If you work in a company for a while, the company is not listed at all. Right. And there's ownership. People feel that they are part of the organization. And there's a lot of lifelong learning within the company too. And lifelong learning is actually a very important part of Huawei. In fact, they set up a Huawei University. And I was talking to the president of the Huawei University. He told me that he has a big task because he needs to send everyone through a program every 18 months. Right. And that shows how fast things are changing and moving and how much you have to do, to change the organization. So this has to be part of the DNA of a university if you want really innovation to be, front and center. You need the talents. You need to be able to have platforms to leverage on all your talents, and you need to have that agility, all right, to make sure that you can actually respond and change very quickly. Thank you.
Cutting. What do we do?
Okay, first point is culture. But Professor Tan mentioned culture, but I'm going to mention different culture. You introduce some bacteria into something and leave it for the night. In the morning, it becomes yogurt. So basically, you introduce this in a crucible. What researchers, cutting edge researchers, innovators want is flexibility, autonomy, and independence. Either the inventors of the polio vaccine or the penicillin. So so let's recognize that innovators want flexibility, independent, and then it will just flourish. The bacteria flourish in a crucible, and that's where Professor Ram Gopal said, get dissimilar people, leave them in a crucible, don't touch them, give them some independence at least for some time. Second point is reward, recognition, and it's not about money. As I said, penicillin, and I gave you the example of polio vaccine. Actually, we need to be glamorous. Solving a problem at scale like India, that should be made glamorous. People say, I want to become vice president of a company or CEO. This is nothing. Have the ambition of, I want to reduce poverty in India to 0 in the next 5 years. So make it glamorous. I'm reminded of Professor Yunus, Mohammad Yunus. He had a talk with Nike, and they were producing $50, $100 shoes. He said, can you reduce the cost so that, poor people, he's the pioneer of microfinance, as you know. So Nike said, what do you want? 20% reduction. He said, no, can you make a $1 shoe? You see the kind of ambition, crazy ambition. They delivered on it. Danone yogurt also, they delivered on Yunus's promise. So I think Steve Jobs, of course, he's the iconic man. He never cared about market value. Actually, when he, I guess, he did not create the kind of value you mentioned in the beginning of this program. He was just crazily ambitious about creating something excellent. And for India, I think we have a wonderful. So second is rewards and recognition. Third is ambitions. First is culture. Leave them alone. Second is make it glamorous. And third is ambition. Let the ambition be at the national scale. I think that is the recipe for creating innovators.
Now, Dr. Krishnan, submitted us in this, the last point. How do you create cutting-edge innovation? You are the great strategist. You are in a business school. I mean, we had the economist. We had the, person who deals with education and skills. We had a president of the university with the director of IIT. Now you sum it up for us for how do you get cutting-edge innovation? How do you lead the world?
So I think there's one point which everybody missed, which is that you need some really maverick and obstinate people. The one challenge I heard, for example, last year I went and talked to a lot of venture investors, and I asked them, why aren't you guys producing really distinctive companies? And one comment which really stuck in my mind is that many of them said, we don't have people who are coming with that idea and are like obstinate about making that idea work. They have so much passion, belief in their idea that, I think we just need a few people like that. Part of it, of course, is culturally dependent, but part of the fault lies with investors like you, Mohan. Immediately when somebody pitches an idea, you say your company is like which other company or which US company and all that. So you guys have to stop asking questions like that. But I think you need people who are really sort of obstinate and possessive about their ideas and are, just willing to slog and drive them. Unless you have that slightly confident but divergent thinkers, you're not going to have cutting edge innovation.
Thank you. I'm going to 3 minutes close this with your permission, of course. Folks,
Can I just
a very fascinating discussion.
Mohan, there's one question I think if the panelists can take up, which was how do you strengthen the rural ecosystem? You know that in India, that's a major chunk. So there was one question in the chat box which was interesting. So if somebody can respond to that, maybe you can respond to that.
Ram Gopal Rao and maybe Ajit talked about it, and unless Dr. Krishnan wants to come in. Dr.
Yeah, there is in fact, Government of India is now in a way, mandating all the institutions to work on rural problems. A couple of years ago, we have created this Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, UBA as it is called. IIT Delhi is the coordinating institution. Through UBA now we are reaching out to almost like 5,000 villages in the country. All the local institutions are now connecting with the rural panchayats and the rural folk so that we understand their problems and see how we can provide solutions. UBA is one platform. If you just search Unnat Bharat Abhiyan on the web page, you get all the details, and that is what is connecting the academic institutions with the rural areas. That's a very successful program, I would say. it takes time for all of this to percolate down to the grassroots level that we get to notice it, but the process has definitely begun now.
Dr. Ajit,
Absolutely. I also don't see agriculture and industry as completely distinct. I see it as a continuum through what is called agro-processing industries. Actually, a lot of innovation will lie at that interface. And, just to give example, for example, a crop for fruit like banana, the highest productivity almost in the world, I mean, if not in the world, at least in Asia, is in a place called Jalgaon, which is in drought-prone Maharashtra. Or the lychee revolution in Bihar. So we need to learn from our own successes in India. So the success stories need to be magnified, amplified. There are innovations in irrigation technology, in seed technology, in so many different things, even in agro processing. I mean, the whole huge opportunity of agro processing, where industry and agriculture can come together in the form of these FPOs, farmer producer organizations. I think that's where most of the action is. And of course, I'm glad Professor Ram Gopal mentioned the government initiatives as well. So I think again, this is an example of a problem at scale. How do we, for example, India staple diet is pulses. But after 40 years, why is it that we have to import large quantities of pulses? If somebody can just take up this challenge, that itself can lead to so many innovations and insights. So there's tremendous opportunity.
Dr. Krishnan?
No, I don't know much about rural India, so I will just abstain from that one.
That we have given to the government, I spoke to the finance minister and gave her this, told her too. If you look at the agricultural economy, our total GVA is about 32 lakh crores. That is about 15% of GDP. 15% of GDP is $450 billion. 55% of the output is cereals and grains. 45% comes from fruits and vegetables, fishing, animal husbandry, milk, etc. And in many of it, especially in fruits and vegetables, animal husbandry, and not milk. Milk has got a large part in the cooperatives. Farmers get only 45-50% of the market price. So we have suggested that NABARD should have a 5,000 crore fund to fund agri-techs, which can connect farmers to markets. Because the farmers get a larger part of the market price, money goes to them. They will innovate, they will spend money, they will improve themselves, but they have to be connected to market. We got 500 agri-techs in this country, and many of them have done wonderful work. We've seen farmers' productivity go up 2x. We've seen the price they get go up by 30-40%, and farmers get much better because you connect them to markets. And I think that's where the cutting-edge innovation can come. Of course, platforms like Dr. Rao. Now, Shobha, let me end by just summing up. I think we had a great panel, fantastic speakers, very innovative ideas. What comes out is a lot of things are happening, a lot of things can be done. The big ideas are create platforms, create an open system, get in unlike minds, get in the mavericks, getting in the innovators, connect them, and bring industry, academia together, reach out, networks, etc. And if you're able to do it, and many have done that, you can have exponential growth. You can have 10x growth in the next 5 years. Ajit is not happy. You can have 100x growth in many areas. Invest in startups, invest in the innovators. Essentially, network, platforms, connectivity, go reach out and create an open culture where innovation can flourish. I think this is wonderful. So I want to stop here and hand it over to you, Shobha. I think you should take all these ideas, make it into your book, and with all case studies from all these institutions, send it to all your members, and I'm sure it'll be tremendous. I think it's a very fascinating session with great speakers. Thank you all very much, and over to you, Shobha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, as you mentioned, extremely fascinating. But before we exit from here, I would request Professor Sandeep Sancheti to sum up the entire day today and also give his concluding remarks. Over to you, Professor Sancheti.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha, and a great big thank you to Mohan for the very fascinating session. We had the second panel discussions. It's my duty to we have come to the valedictory session. I know I'm encroaching your time between you and your lunch, so I will try to be short, but I must say that there is a great deal of learning for all of us. I will take this opportunity to basically convey my sincere thanks to Shri Piyush Goyal, the Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry, and also Minister for Railways, Government of India, for delivering the keynote address in the inaugural session and immensely emphasizing the importance of using our own expertise. He gave examples of how India can be a powerhouse for yoga, how it can benefit the world in terms of fitness, health, provide job opportunities, enhance learning of all population, and of course, promote Indian practices. He also gave examples of what we call about Indian skills and crafts and other expertise. For example, furniture making, which we do a big import currently in terms of some modular structures which are there. But he says that these can be done by Indians very easily. And therefore, we should become the signature country or a place to supply to the world all these kind of things. He, of course, talked about various things about Atmanirbhar Bharat. He also said that 1 in 4 graduates by another 5-10 years would be coming from India in the world, and therefore Indian higher education has a huge place and a scope for going further. And he did emphasize on the aspects of passion and compassion. And also he said that the prosperity which we generally dream for or crave for is always created, not inherited, and therefore we need to continue to work. So a big thank you to Honorable Minister. Thank you, sir. In your absentia, I would like to thank you from FICCI's side and from our side. Would also like to thank both, I would say, Dr. Parivendra, our chairperson from the SRM IST, and Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, the president of FICCI and the joint MD of Apollo Hospitals, for having graced the occasion in the inaugural part and also blessed all of us with their ideas, their themes, and their topics of interest. Their gracious presence is acknowledged by all of us who are present here. They, of course, talked about education as the foundation for the economy. We all know that, and it was re-emphasized. And I'm very happy that FICCI, under the leadership of Dr. Reddy, continues to work and make forays into education space, be it the new education policy or be it any other domain, including the today's effort which was there. And I'm very happy that this online education in India, opportunities and challenge, that knowledge paper was kind of featured and released and is going to help us in a big way. And today I came to know much more about the Future X program, where we are trying to help the faculty, which is the core, which is the heart of driving what is happening inside the institutions. So a special thanks to Dr. Sangeeta Reddy for her support to academic world. Of course, they take care of the entire world. And today in the second session, we learned that the world of industrial world is not alone. It has to be marrying with the academic world. It has to be marrying with the what we call the governmental agencies of the world. And I would say, why not society also? Let there be a four-way marriage, because society is the real gainer. And unless they accept what we are trying to do, nothing would happen. I think these points were very elaborately brought out by every speaker, and every one of them was very, very learned. And therefore, I'll take a minute because I'm so tempted to say a point only about each of the speaker. For example, Pranjal Sharma ji, who moderated our session number 1, the entire session was focused on the skills, and it was very well because everyone added some value to the skill. And I think skill should be given its due in the education space in India. We look down upon on skills. I'm in education for last 36 years and been in certain positions. I can say that we are not given our respect to the skill, and it's time that we change that. I think Arun Jain ji talked about less is more, and he also talked about how last 2% is important, how you can do the value migration, how he talked about the knowledge cataloging which was there. When we came to Hemal Shah ji, he talked about the generation Alpha, not generation Y, Z, and all that. And he talked about how the skills becomes more important than experience. For example, all our advertisements, they seek what are the experiences you have and where have you worked. But I think it's very right that the life of a skill is becoming very less, which was said by the next speaker, Lokesh Mehra ji. He said life of skill is typically 5 years. And therefore, we should forget about that much of experience and more about the skill should come. We should wear different hats at different times. We should talk about the chances and the choices, which we are generally not doing. There are various other things which we talked about. I think Anurag Malik ji talked about the remote working and how we should institutionalize that. Right now, there is a lot of resistance about that and how it will bring the gender focus once again, or the gender balance once again, and therefore how it will help the Indian conditions in a very, very big way when it came to the panel 1. When it came to panel 2, I think some of you are already present, so it will be wrong for me to shorten what you said, but I will still try to say. And I must say that I quite liked what Dr. Ranade said, that institutions should also be for profit. Without that, the right investments will not come. Without that, the reinvestment will not come. And therefore, I think it's time that we reinvest and make it for profit. Government has to work on that. And I think indirectly incubation, enterprises and all that probably will help us do that. Professor Ten also talked about the various models by which they produce something like 700 startups and various other multiple locations. I think that's a big challenge, and big challenge to do it within India also, but he has done, his institution has done throughout the world. I think 14, 15 countries. I think we have to learn a lot about that. And that research, that 1/3 model which you have said, Professor Ten, I think is going to help us, that we should also do the models of that particular nature. I think that model was repeated by Professor Gopal also, but in a slightly different way in terms of generating certain centers. And he gave emphasis to relevance of research. And of course, R&D for him became relevance and delivery. We do research and development, but he did talk about relevance and delivery also. Mr. Andreas talked about integrating the workplaces and places of learning. Actually, that's very, very important, because we should not separate or segregate industry and the education sector. So I think that was very, very nice. And Professor Rishikesh Krishnan also talked about the long time activities for commercialization and accelerating commercialization, right problems, various other things which were there. Very good questions were posed by none other than Mohan to get the best answers. I'm sure we'll all be able to capture these thoughts. It will not be easy for us to digest that in a very short while, but I'm sure FICCI will help. All of us will come together to make sure that whatever we have learned today is certified into some actions and some tangible outputs which are there. We are still left with lots of challenges. For example, why we do not have today a product which was probably conceived in India, planned in India, designed in India, made in India, which is made big in the world. Today, we don't have answers for that. Maybe very petty answers are there. We'll still keep working on these problems which have been highlighted. And therefore, with these few words, because of the paucity of time, I'd like to close the valedictory session by thanking once again everyone. And I must say that I should place on record our deepest thanks to the session chair and moderation done by Dr. Shobha Mishra Ghosh. Also the presence of Dr. Dilip Shenoy, who was there present in the morning, and then of course some other urgent work took him out. Also to Pranjal Sharma ji and Mohandas Paisa for agreeing to host our two panel discussions, which were very, very important. And I'm sure with the institutions like FICCI, which is more than 90 years old, and SRM, which is more than 50 years old, coming together, many new things will emerge out of our joint activities. I'm sure we will continue to join hands to drive this particular domain very much within our limitations, but still with a target which Mohan has said to us that it should be 10x. And that is what we should try to do it. I would also like to thank all the audience who have joined in big numbers from world over. I'm told around 2,000 plus people had registered. I'm sure the numbers who have joined us during the discussions have also been very, very large, around 40 countries, all sorts of institutions, industries, CEOs, CXOs, everyone has joined. And also the governmental agencies and other academic world people have joined us. So once again, a big thank you on behalf of SRM, Institute of Science and Technology, on behalf of FICCI, on behalf of all the organizers and the joint association. We look forward to continued association in future. With this, I'd like to close once again. Thank you so much. Namaskar, Jai Hind, and we look forward to meeting you again. I'll pass on the baton once again to you, Dr. Shobha Mishra Ghosh. Namaskar.
Thank you, Professor Sancheti. I think you have summed up all, but we do have with us Secretary General Mr. Dilip Shenoy, so he will have the last word. Over to you.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you, Shenoy sir, for your presence, and I thank you personally for your presence also. Thank you.
Professor Sancheti and everybody at the SHRM Institute, and to all the participants, thank you for being this poll of this morning and this afternoon. As the minister mentioned, that this is one event where the attendance has been increasing as it progressed. So even now we have close to 400 people on the call. So thank you very much for everybody for joining, and thank you all the panelists. And we had some excellent panelists and excellent chairs there during the session. Thank you everyone for actually being here, and a very special thank you to Dr. T.R. Parivendran, who is the Chancellor. He joined us. Thank you very much for that, and to the President FICCI and to the Minister, and to the moderators Pranjal and Mr. Pai, who actually did the sessions there. My job is only to amplify our thanks, and also to convey our appreciation to Shobha and her team, and the team at SHRM who actually put this together. So thank you, everybody. Keep safe, keep well, and continue, to make this sector very important. As we heard in the morning, 1 out of every 4th graduate in the future is going to come out of our ecosystem. So we have a great responsibility going forward. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you all.
Namaskar, everyone. Thank you. Yeah.
Great session.
Thank you, Mohan,
Thank you. Thank
for
you.
driving us.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskar.